right. Hello, everyone. We're going to give the audience a little another moment to pop in. Um, I just came on early because I didn't want you to have to sit and just look at that blue screen there. But for everyone who's here, thank you very much for tuning in. I'm very excited to talk about um, the James Gunn Superman movie tonight with my guests that I'm bringing on. I also now have a surprise guest who will be coming on in a little bit. I'm going to make sure he has the link. But yeah, so before we get started, just the usual stuff, which I have next to me here. Hold on. Getting them all. So don't forget, you can go on Amazon or to Bold Venture Press and pick up Zorro's Exploits, where I illustrated 2 Zorro stories in. Whoops. Zorro Swordplay and Romance, which I did 1 story in. The one who did the cover to Zorro's Exploits published this in Portugal, and I got a title illustration page in here. This is a great book if you speak Portuguese or you can read Portuguese. I read the English version of the stories. And don't forget, you can go on Amazon and pick up the Whimsical Whiz, the complete 2023 collection. I am working on last year's collection right now. In addition to that, you can go to akidinacomic.com and sign up to get paper, completely all comics by a lot of talented creators. You can find the Wiz in there as well as a bunch of other stuff. So before we get started on tonight's show, and I'm going to be bringing on a couple of friends of mine. I mentioned them in my Instagram. If you saw my reel today, I'm bringing on Rob Nurl and Ray Felix and another special guest, and it looks like Ray is walking around doing something. But before we begin, I just wanted to make a little announcement about this movie. I know there's been a lot of news, and you guys have seen articles, YouTube videos, actual news reports that coming from whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, that it's this or that. I want to let you know that as someone who has seen the movie, I can honestly say I don't believe there is anything political about this movie. I don't think you can compare characters to people who are out in the real world today, or you technically, I guess you can, but I'm not saying they were created and influenced from these people out there or situations going on in the world. There have always been, wealthy people. There have always been conflicts between countries, and history has a way of repeating themselves. Also, these are stories that have appeared in comics as well. So with that, I just want to get that out of the way before we really begin. All right. So again, I don't think this was political. I don't think it was woke. I don't think anybody is in the movie specifically compared to somebody else. So we're not gonna bring politics into tonight's conversation because I really don't think, number one, it is needed, or it has anything to really do with the film. We're going to talk about this as a Superman film and the enjoyment of the character, whether you like the film or not. And I have a whole list on my phone here that I put together of things I want to make sure that I want to talk about and liked and disliked about the movie. So let's bring on our guests. The first one I'm bringing on is Rob Nurl. Hello, Rob.
Hey, Mike, good to see you again.
Good to see you. Next up is Ray Felix. I thought I hit him. There we go. Ray Felix.
Greetings and salutations.
And last but not least, a good friend of the show as well, our surprise guest tonight, and someone who actually visited the set of the Christopher Reeve Superman, Tom Siaka. Why aren't you coming on? There you go, Tom. How you doing?
Here I am. Yes, for this lousy. I have this lousy camera here, but that's all right.
you
see
could
my eyes.
move back a little bit if you want.
Yeah, I didn't move back a lot. Hold on.
So first off, I want to thank
I'm using a computer. I'm using a cheap iPad knockoff from Walmart. So
okay, listen.
there you go. Because my phone, it works.
All right, listen. You're here. That's all
It
that
works.
matters, right?
I'm here and I'm queer. That's right.
All right. Okay.
So, anyhow,
Thank
you.
you.
Talking. Yes, no politics. Please. No politics.
Yes, we're not going to do that.
And by the way, the new Samsung phone stinks. So,
all right.
Anyhow.
Okay. So, first off, everyone, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate everyone for coming on tonight. All of us have seen the movie, and me, Ray, and Tom have a strong comic book knowledge of the Superman character. Rob is not. You're a comic fan, but you're not a Superman comic fan. Is that correct?
I am. Full transparency. As a kid, and Mike, if you know, when I first was on your show a year ago talking about my kid's book, I said it to you then. Like it's ironic that I wrote a children's book because I was a lazy reader when I was a kid, and that steered me away from comics. The only comics I ever collected was because I liked the artwork, and that was about it. I was a lazy reader. Never got into comics because I was just that kid. I just didn't want to.
Yeah.
I was more of a visual person. And so no, I never, not just Superman comics, but almost any comics. I just never got into them. Loved the artwork. And then by the time I got to a point where I thought, you know what, this is pretty cool. I think I'm missing the boat. Like the boat had sailed long ago, and I was like, I'm never going to catch up with anything. And I just never got into it. But as far as the films and TV shows and stuff like that, I've kept up on it. So I'm going to come in with a complete uncomic related perspective on this movie, comparing it to other films. And that's where your expertise and your knowledge is going to be valuable.
But I like that because, like I said, Ray, Tom, and I are comic fans. And we have a background, loving the character, reading the books. So we see it from a different point of view. And I will say, going into the movie, I already had certain expectations because of how much I wanted to see certain things. You hear James Gunn is making a comic book movie, and everybody's saying it's like watching a comic come to life. And I was like, okay, well, if it's like a comic coming to life, these are the comics I need to see come to life, and this type of stuff. So I went into it as open-minded as I could. Also, and I've been vocal on here about this and on, social media and stuff, that I am not a James Gunn fan. I don't like his movies for the most part. I feel he sacrifices story for humor. And I think he's got a lot of potential. Like I want to put this out there also to my audience. When I say I don't like James Gunn movies, doesn't mean I don't like James Gunn or I don't think he has quality stuff. Like, he's got potential in what he does. I just don't think it's executed properly. And some of the stuff I think is because of him. Some of the stuff is studio mandated, probably. And I don't know which is which, but I think he has the potential. I do believe he is a comic fan. I just don't. Just don't think he's executing films properly. And I can go back to
a great director, bad writer. That's
how you see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
He just writes to his dialogue is just juvenile. It's a juvenile.
But comics are technically for kids when you really think about it. I mean,
Yeah,
know,
but they wasn't made for the kids of today. They were the kids of yesterday,
yeah, no,
our
I get that.
generation.
No,
Sure, we
I
are much more mature than the kids of today.
I wouldn't go that far, but okay, it's
Yeah, you don't think that? Like,
no.
I don't know. When I was already in high school, I mean, I moved out of my house at 18, and most kids, when I was 15, a lot of my friends weren't even living at home. Most of us had a job, maybe 2 jobs. I had 2 jobs at 15. So, and nowadays, these kids are like in their 30s living with their parents jobless.
Well,
Different,
you know,
different
times, but
different
I
times.
mean, listen, again, we'll yeah. But yeah, that's just my point of view on James Gunn and his filmmaking. You know, it's funny. As soon as I punched out of my day job and I walked into the living room, my wife was watching Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and I'm like, "Why is this on TV?"
Right.
You know, like I'm like, I'm going to be talking about something I don't like his stuff, and I'm like, can we change this?
Well, I mean, it's good. It's good to have it fresh in mind, right?
Yeah, I believe me, the movie's still fresh in my mind. But anyway, before we get into like the movie as a whole and other stuff, I want to give everybody a chance to give it a rating out of 10. I gave 2 ratings to this movie. The first was as like a just a fun nonsense kind of popcorn movie, and I said it's about a 7 out of 10. But as a Superman movie, I consider it a 5, maybe a little less than a 5 out of 10. Rob, what would you kind of rate this film?
Yeah, I think I'm with you in terms of just a general entertaining, you know, uh, I'll say it's a quality movie. I'll give it a 7 out of 10 in that respect. But if I'm comparing it to other Superman movies or Superman content that's been created for the TV or the screen in any kind of way, yeah, I would maybe give it a 6. I wouldn't go as low as a 5, but I'd probably say a 6 out of 10.
All right,
That's
Tom.
Very nice. That's very nice.
Tom, what do you think?
I pretty much give it like an 8 out of 10 with reservations
Okay.
because I give the film score, like a 3 out of 10
Really?
because I thought that the score itself was not great.
Okay.
I mean, it's nice that they used the John Williams theme, but they didn't use the entire John Williams theme, and then they did it in a kind of a weird way, which was all right, but the score itself to me was like not memorable.
Okay.
So the score itself, I give it, and as far as like as an 8, there were a couple of annoying things about it that I think that there were things that were unexplained, and also some of the initial meeting of the Justice Gang. And by the way, from what I read, what it is this is not the Justice League. This is like the initial like tryout that eventually they're going to become the Justice League. But now this is kind of like again another one of his joke things, Justice Gang. So it's kind of like the infant Justice League.
Which
so
eventually Mystery Men, the Ben Stiller movie, which is like the running joke that it seemed like he was just kind of borrowing from that.
All right.
I mean, there's a lot of borrowing from a lot of stuff in this movie, which is kind of. I mean, it's okay that he borrowed things. Oh, the other thing that why I don't give it a 10 because I really kind of dislike the costume.
The Jubilee design,
we're going to speak specifically about the costume in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I dislike the costume, not 100%, but at least 50% of the costume I dislike. So, but as far as the casting goes, the casting was terrific. He got the casting right. The music I thought kind of like not good. Superman, David Cornsweet, very good. I saw him and Rachel Brosnahan in a play last year in New York, and they were great. So I knew we're in good hands. So that I give it an 8.
All right, and Ray.
A general 8.
And Ray, what do you rate it as?
I've been thinking. It's hard. I would give it a 7. I did like Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, even though I thought 2 was a little silly. 3 was off the rails, terrible, waste of money. I wanted my money back. The Christmas special was god awful. And then he claimed
I've never seen that.
he claimed that he made it awful on purpose, and then was trying to say he was making it awful because of the Star Wars Christmas special. And then Mark Hamill was in it for like 3 seconds, but you didn't know it was Mark Hamill. It's like, anyway, I thought it was terrible. But the reason I would say a 6.5, because to me it was like a reboot of Christopher Reeve Superman 3 and 4, and we can go into that later.
Yeah.
Like I've sent you notes.
Yeah. You told me about some of the stuff.
And basically, it broke down the whole film. It's basically Superman 3 and 4, all the way down to the Supergirl scene. So, are we doing spoilers here? Is that
Well,
okay?
we are going to do spoilers.
Okay,
Don't worry.
All right.
Based on the comics. So you don't think David Hornswet is a good-looking guy, huh?
Well, I think they could have just stayed with Henry Cavill. I don't think it was necessary to change it. I did like Lois Lane, but I'm a big fan of Miss Maisel. So,
Yeah, I enjoyed that show too.
And it looks like, there was an article a few weeks ago saying that they cut 25 minutes of the movie based on their screen test for silliness. So thank you. Because I just think Peacemaker and Suicide Squad sequel and all the dialogue that was meaningless. So thanks for that. I thought it was a missed opportunity to have Shazam, the Blue Beetle, and all these characters that they introduced in the other films from the Black Adams films, like, because they were leading us JSA, and then you get there and it's Justice Gang. Like,
well, there was a JSA reference when they were in I forget where they were, but there was the mural, and there were JSA characters painted in the mural. I ended up looking that up. After I saw the movie, I'm like, there was a mural. Let me see this mural, and there was a photo of it, and you can see some JSA characters.
Yeah, so
in there.
to call it Justice Gang is a cop out. I think they should have they built it up for 4 movies. The Justice Society from the Black Adam film. I mean, it would have been great to have Pierce Bronson come back as Dr. Fate. Have Hawkman and Hawkgirl together.
Yeah.
I mean, I could take, you could.
It was another one of his bad jokes.
Well, here's the thing. Because I want to ask another question, but and Rob, I know you don't read the comics. It's going to be a little comic-y, but the Justice Gang was in the Terrifics costume. It looks like the show. So I have a feeling that that's going to come along and they're going to eventually break out. But just getting back to
he already announced there was a Terrifics movie coming.
Okay. I haven't seen all the announcements, but
yeah.
With Hawkgirl, I don't know what version they're making her to say. Excuse me, like, is she the reincarnated, character?
Right. And why is she screaming like Black Canary?
Or is she, from Thanagar? Like, how are they doing that? Also, the movies that came before are not supposed to exist in this world, so they're going to have to recast the actors.
Mm-hmm.
I personally didn't want to see Henry Cavill come back. I think he's a great Superman. I don't think his Superman, though, was the type of Superman I wanted to see. This one, I will say this: there was a bit more light in this character than there was in the brooding. I don't like brooding Superman, which Henry Cavill played. And there wasn't much hope in the.
I mean, have you seen Man of Steel? I was just watching it yesterday.
I have seen it.
Saves a lot of people. He is hopeful.
Yeah,
he is.
I don't know. We'll get into that, but let's.
I would say it was more of a Vertigo or like Black Label type of Superman, but DC has always been a somber comic book company in the 80s. That's the direction it took it. They got away from the 1950s and 60s.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even the 80s. I mean, I would say after John Byrne, it just got just like the topics that were in that film. Like, you know, like those are all mature topics, and those topics are similar to what was in the Snyderverse films too. It was, you know, we opened up with the international Superman being more international hero, not an American hero, and you know, and then Lois Lane being abducted by those, you know, terrorists in the Man of Steel film, or was that Batman versus Superman? I forget, but
I don't remember.
yeah, it was Batman versus Superman. Yeah, BVS. Yeah, so I mean, those are topics that have been in Superman comics since the 90s, since the early 90s.
Yeah.
It's just people don't remember. Like you mentioned about politics, like this is Superman 427, that whole storyline of a dictator, you know, was right from Jerry Ordway and Marv Wolfman's comic book, but except it was Saddam Hussein, and this is like pre 9/11, like by, you know, like by a decade. So
Yeah.
they're already tackling subjects like that, and the mob and gangs, and which was Golden Age Superman fought the mob and gangs, you know. So they're tackling that.
Yeah, but I think it's also just the way
That James
the
Gunn,
way it's produced. Like Superman, unless this was after the death of Superman. I don't know when that book came out, but if that was after the death,
Before.
that was before. Superman wasn't the brooding character.
Yeah,
It wasn't until after his death that they started really making him not smile as much anymore. You know, there was a whole different take. But let's come back to that, because I wanna talk about a couple of things. Now, we mentioned the cast. Tom mentioned the cast was perfect. I think everybody was a great cast. Would everyone agree on that? All right.
I thought it was good. I even liked the Guy Gardner. I mean, I was glad that they had Guy Gardner. I've always wanted to see Guy Gardner in the pictures. And I thought the guy was perfect. I just thought that he should have had a Guy Gardner suit, because he looked like a Power Ranger.
All right.
I mean, but aside from that, you know, I thought it was great.
I think what it was is that they didn't really explain what was going on, why they all had the same suit. I mean, you really had to like read up on it somewhere else, and because it's supposed to be, they're supposed to be, what's his name?
Mark McGuire and Keith McGiffin.
That guy, that other billionaire.
Maxwell Lord.
Maxwell Lord. Yeah.
Maxwell Lord. They're supposed to be a group set up by Maxwell. So they're basically a private Justice League set up by Maxwell Lord. And they go. That's why they all have the same uniform, but they didn't go into explaining what and why. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
Why do they have the same costume? So that's one of the faults in the movie, as far as that goes.
But that might have been in the 25 minutes they cut.
Yeah. Post crisis, that was a real storyline, which was a comedy comic, which
that was a
his
great
wheelhouse
great
perfectly. Story. They just should have had Shazam and Martian Manhunter and Booster Gold.
But we don't know what's coming, and but let's since you brought up the costume, Tom, I'm going to go around. We'll start with Rob, and I'll end it for myself. But Rob, what did you think of specifically Superman's costume? But if you want to touch upon another characters that you really liked or didn't like, feel free to mention it.
Yeah, I think I'll keep it just relegated to Superman, because I know, Gunn at least was trying to be as accurate, I mean, to the comics as possible from what I've seen and what I've read, because who the hell would create a character with that kind of freaking haircut that Guy Gardner had? There would have to be some kind of intent there, obviously. And I know enough to know that is his actual kind of haircut in the series. But as far as Superman in the suit, the only thing that I think bothered me about the suit, I mean, we see so many different incarnations of this thing. I would have just change whatever you want, as far as I don't care if the underwear or the cod piece is outside or inside. I don't care about that. I would have liked him to just keep the traditional S. I think if he kept one thing traditional back to I think it would have been that, and maybe he did go back further to like some of the older in the 40s and 50s. But I would have liked to seen the traditional one that I grew up with in the 80s, seeing that S as the S and change everything else. That's fine. I did want to go back real quick, so I was okay with the suit for the most part.
Yeah,
I honestly, I didn't even, and this is a credit to him. You know, this is a credit to the movie that he made, because I didn't even really think about it. I really didn't think about it. I didn't care about it. I was more focused on everything else. And going back to just really quick, just about the cast again, because Tom had brought it up and echoed the same thing that I have felt. Cast was on point. Corn Sweat, I mean, I read up on him. He's actually Juilliard trained, just like Christopher Reeve was. The guy's from Philadelphia, still lives in Philadelphia. Very, talented and skilled. Now, when you compare him to a Henry Cavill, now I don't know Henry Cavill's acting education background, but you're talking about, and the reason why Gunn probably went with Corn Sweat is because when you think about those two guys and those two Supermans, Cavill made you feel, whether it was intentionally or not, you knew and you felt that guy was an alien from somewhere else. Like he felt like almost robotic in a way. Definitely had emotion to an extent, but not to the level that Corn Sweat was able to put out there. And you may when he was angry, upset, frustrated, you felt it. When he was, hurt, you felt it. So Corn Sweat, great job by him. Great casting to put him in that role. He was, frankly, I felt he was perfect.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to disagree. And when it comes to me about the costume, I will mention a few things. But no, I agree. I think he is a good Superman for revamping the universe, and a good Superman for the era that we're in right now. I will say he did. Some of the stuff was a little corny in my eyes, but he did make me root for him. So we'll just go down on the screen. Tom, what was your thoughts on the costume?
I kind of go along with Rob. The costume wasn't awful. The S I kind of could live with, because I would have preferred it to be the traditional one. But I think I know corporately why they went with that, because in 10 years, Superman becomes public domain. Mm. So they're going to change some stuff, change up things. They're going to change up the S for trademark purposes. So, because in 10 years, that S will probably be public domain, whatever. The S didn't really bug me as much. The thing that bothered me was the friggin' collar. That's from the New 52. I hated that collar. I hated that collar. They could have left a traditional looking. I mean, I didn't mind that it wasn't skin tight, because they were kind of, along with the personality of Superman, they went way back to the George Reeves Superman. Because I posted a picture of the two of them in a similar position. The George Reeves Superman costume, which I wore once, by the way, when I was at DC. I wore an actual George Reeves costume. It was made out of wool, right? So it couldn't show, because George Reeves had a muscular build. He lifted weights, but you couldn't see it, because and the same thing with Corn Sweat, that he built himself up, but had he had a skin tight suit like Christopher Reeve, it would look different. But that was the look they were going for, kind of like the Big Brother look, more human look, the George Reeves look. But that collar really pissed me off. It threw off the whole thing for me. It was almost like a military thing, a Nehru jacket. I don't know if you guys knew what a Nehru jacket was. It was something from the '60s that looked like the jacket that Ernst Stavro Blofeld wore in the Bond films. Yeah. That was a Nehru jacket. That's what it reminded me of.
Like a Chinese uniform.
So the costume, the costume didn't do it for me. It didn't do it for me. I mean, I appreciate where they were trying to go, but whatever. So the costume itself was like, but he's good. I was talking about Cavill versus Corn Sweat. I like Cavill. Cavill's good. I couldn't see Cavill being in this. Number one, here was the problem I had. And I like Cavill a lot. He's a Brit. So his accent is really not real when he's doing an American accent. It's not, when you hear him speaking normally, it's cool. When he's doing Superman, it sounds mechanical because it's a fake accent. Corn Sweat is an American. He's from Pennsylvania. He's from Philadelphia. He's like a normal guy. If you see the interviews with him, he's like a really nice guy. And he went to Juilliard like Chris Reeve. He's the same height as Chris Reeve, 6'4". So I mean, there's a lot of similarities there. So Henry Cavill couldn't have. Now, I myself would like to see a continuation of what Snyder did. Maybe is popular. Maybe we'll let Netflix do like a version of Justice League 2 or Superman. That's cool. But in this particular film, Cavill wouldn't have worked. It had to be all new cast, and the same thing with Tom Holland, who plays Spider-Man. I like him, but it's like I can tell the accent's not real because he's a Brit. But he's cool though. But I can go along with it. But the Superman, it's like James Bond. You can't have an American play James Bond. It's got to be a Brit. Well, you can't have someone who's not American play Superman.
Sorry. To play Superman. We need representation.
Well, yeah. Well, maybe a real Kryptonian, if there's really aliens, probably has like 6 legs and 5 eyes or something. So, but anyway, yeah, exactly. But I think Corn Sweat is pretty close to like a Chris Reeve type. Chris Reeves / George Reeves. That's the way I look at him.
Ray, your thoughts on the costume?
Well, the costume was from the New 52. I always felt, that's just me, me. I've always felt that the collar looked identical to the Imagine the Mystic cover that I had in my comic books. But because I don't know if I told you, the guy that used to be my roommate, he actually ghosted for Jim Lee, and he was always in my studio, and a lot of stuff that came out of this studio ended up in DC Comics. Like I saw firsthand when he first drew Supergirl in the black costume. Like it was like six months or a year before it actually came out, and he was working with the guy who did Fathom, Michael Turner and stuff on that Superman series. He also did a lot of ghosting for Jim Lee and stuff. So he was definitely influenced by Imagine the Mystic with that color.
Okay. All right, but what about but let's focus on Superman though.
But I think that Superman, I mean, Superman's had that costume it doesn't bother me. I mean, I think I never liked the New 52 Superman because he was kind of like bratty. He was but what's funny is that Cavill is the New 52 Superman, but he did it with class. Whereas if you see any of the animated series of Superman with the New 52 look, he has and if you've read those comics, he has a cockiness to him, like he felt that he was superior. He's not the Superman we grew up with. So, and I was glad when they killed him and brought back the Rebirth Superman, which was Superman Before Crisis. So I mean, which is actually really Superman Blue, if you go back to the Kurt Swan books, which I discovered recently, that the suit from Rebirth was actually Superman Blue's costume, with the exception of the cape and the logo, but the boots were Superman Blue's boots. But I prefer the classic Superman costume. I thought Corn Sweat or Sweet or whatever his name is did a decent job. I mean, it's not hard to do Superman. I don't think that's a complicated character. I think what's complicated is bringing life to a 2-dimensional character is a challenge.
Yeah.
And he's gonna face criticism of it, but people do love Chris Reeve. For many people, Chris Reeve is their Superman. When I was a kid, sure, but Not for me. I think he had his time, and I think we've had so many different interpretations that I'm always looking forward to newer interpretations. I'm not hung up on Christopher Reeve. I'm not in elementary school anymore. And, it's kind of like you give up Santa Claus. You're just like, okay, it had its time.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't sit through those movies. They irk me. They irked me when I was watching them, especially 3 and 4. But
Well, I don't rewatch 3 and 4, but 1 and 2
Yeah.
I'll go back and rewatch.
you know,
Um,
yeah. I mean, I think the last time I saw them was in the early 2000s, and I'm just like cringing, just like the early Batman movies. Cringed. I never like.
oh, I watched them. Oh God, it was a few months ago. My wife and I were talking about this movie, and she made a comment like she's never seen the Chris Reeve movies, and I'm like, we're going to be married 17 years in September. How have you never seen? She's like, no, it's just been a long time. I said, okay, sit down. You know what we're doing tonight? And we watched Superman 1, and then later we watched Superman 2.
I hope you showed her
But
the Donner cut, not the other one.
whatever's on HBO Max.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, for me with the costume, I am going to say I also didn't like the high collar. One of the things when I see Superman is it's supposed to fit under his clothes, his costume, and how do you hide that collar?
Right.
Also,
He's
when
a
it comes, yeah, also when it comes to the S, Tom, I don't disagree with the possibilities of Tom's reasoning, but that's Kingdom Come S. That's later on in the future. I am much more. I want to see the classic S now. I don't. Because it's the evolution of the S changing into that. But then my wife, what she does is she's a TikTok person. Not she puts things, she watches it like all the time. I haven't been on TikTok in months, and supposedly there's a lot of stuff going on, and they're saying that because of the um, the message from the parents when he finds out that it's that he's supposed to rule over Earth. That he's going to maybe change the S to step away from his Kryptonian heritage a little bit and embrace being on Earth. And that's a theory. And if that's how it's happening, that's cool, because in Kingdom Come, if you guys have read it, basically everyone he cares about is dead. It's been however many years, and when he comes back, he's wearing that S, so with the black instead of the yellow inside.
Yeah. Which is like the Fleischer Studios.
Yeah. So I'm thinking
Right.
that might be. I'm hoping that might be, because I'd like to see a more classic S on him. I didn't really like the bulkiness of the costume, but I would have been fine with the skin tight classic costume. But the costume itself didn't bother me. It was the collar and the S. Excuse me. Now, we're gonna go back around Ray, go to Rob, and then end with me again on this one here. Tom brought up the score earlier. This is one of the things that actually I didn't think was bad, but I was bothered by, and I'll explain when it gets to me. Ray, tell me your thoughts on the score and how maybe it affected the storytelling for you.
I thought the score was terrible, personally. I didn't think it was memorable. I kind of try to block it out of my brain. Aside from the opening, the song of what do they call them? The corn joys or the crab joys? That was awful. Then he had some random song. It seemed like he probably was going to go for a Guardians of the Galaxy thing where the music was going to define, and maybe the studio told them no. Because it's more classical. I think that James Gunn has certain, if you see his movies, he pulled out all the stops for, he has certain stylistic things that is repetitive.
And music's a big part of that for him.
And music's a big part of it. And it looks like Warner Brothers is very controlling and micromanaging. So it looks like that happened and the film suffered because of it. But at the same time, I don't want to hear Reservoir Dogs soundtracks on a Superman film. It's like, you know what I mean? It's And soundtrack is important to a film. I think you should try to be as unique as possible. When
Yeah.
I mean, I really like um, the Snyder cuts. I mean, the Man of Steel um, soundtrack. I thought it was good, and it was unique. It was different, and I think this was an opportunity for him to do something unique and different. Um, I mean, it's good to have the classic one for the opening, but throughout the whole film, it just was not a memorable soundtrack. It didn't really carry you through the film. And I felt like a lot of editing that Warner Brothers does in their movies in general, when it comes to the superhero genre, everything's very abrupt and doesn't get established quickly. There's a lot of gaps when they edit these movies, and it's choppy. And you could tell that there was a big chunk of something was supposed to happen here and it didn't happen. And they do it in Flash, Blue Beetle, all the movies that they've done. There's a whole bunch of just like these random chops, and I think that is bad, you know.
All right, Tom, your thoughts?
Um, yeah, I agree with Ray, and I have more comments. I think it's funny. So, Man of Steel, I hated the score because it didn't use the John Williams theme. No. But in retrospect, and some statements that Snyder made is that he wanted to use the John Williams theme in Man of Steel, but Warner Brothers told him no. So now, in retrospect, looking at the score of Man of Steel, it is good. I realized what he wanted to do, and Hans Zimmer, I like his stuff. So I kind of wish that Gunn had used Hans Zimmer in this film because he's excellent. He's won like I think 3 Academy Awards or something. So had that happened, I mean, it was nice that they used the John Williams theme every time Superman did something, but the actual score of the film, absolutely, I have no memory of it. Whatever, there was like nothing memorable about it. It was awful. And I've heard some other people talk about the guys that did the score. That it's the same thing. I think they also did his other films, and absolutely not memorable. I think Ray could have done a better score using his AI, using his AI stuff. I've heard some of Ray's songs that he's been doing AI, and they're pretty good. Ray could have done a better job doing the score with his AI than this.
Wow.
I could have done a better score with the AI.
Wow.
So it was kind of like, yeah, no, it was just like bring back Hans Zimmer.
Okay. Rob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's funny when Tom mentioned earlier, he was the first one to mention the score, and it hit me like, what the exact words that he said was that it wasn't memorable, and I was like, well, damn right it wasn't, because you just reminded me that the movie actually had music to it, because I had really just completely forgotten about it. I do recall the moments where they played the classical, John Williams or a version of it for a brief moment or two at the beginning, and maybe later on in the film. But yeah, the music was not memorable for all of the action and kind of, I mean, I don't want to call them dramatic moments because some of the action was kind of a little ridiculous. It was just over the top kind of stuff, which is, again, it's James Gunn, so it's gonna be ridiculous to an extent. But yeah, I mean, I think the music could have been a lot better, and yeah, it certainly was not memorable at all.
Well, I'll be honest. When I think of that movie, all I hear is the John Williams score. I didn't remember stuff, but I know while I watched it, the score didn't bother me except for the John Williams parts. I said this when the trailer came out and they released with the John Williams score on the electric guitar, which I think sounds awesome, but I don't think they should have used it. That's Chris Reeve. When I hear that score, or just the instrumental part of the that's Christopher Reeve for me. And every time they played that, I was taken out of the film because I expected Chris's Superman. Now, I said this in the beginning. I think, you're creating something new. And then when I say begin, I'm talking when the trailer came out. You're creating something new. Bring new music to it. Bring something that's going to represent this Superman. I feel, and I don't want to, be a hypocrite, because my work is all about nostalgia. It's my drawing style. Everything is about, what I loved as a kid. But I feel when you have a movie like this, and people are, maybe people are, you hear Superman's coming out or whatever superhero. Now all of a sudden people are worried: is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? And there's been a lot of bad superhero movies lately that, and again, just like I think that Gunn might be mandated on other things by the studios, like with Peacemaker, to make Vigilante basically Deadpool when he's not Deadpool. And I don't know if that actually happened or that was James Gunn's idea, but what I'm saying is I don't know if it's studio or his idea. But what I feel like he was playing on the nostalgia for people in our age group that grew up watching Chris Reeve and loving Chris Reeve and giving us something to kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Subconsciously root for Superman. I think if we had any other type of composer, even John Williams was just not doing what John Williams did. If we had different music, would we feel the same way about, David's interpretation of Superman?
Can I make
Yeah,
a comment
absolutely.
on that? My thought process, and also kind of having worked in the studio system a little bit. So, anyone remember the bootleg Sean Connery James Bond film Never Say Never Again?
Mm-hmm.
He did. It's the same year that Aquafina came out.
Okay.
That was his return as James Bond, but it wasn't an official Eon production United Artists. Yeah. That was the one with which was a remake of Thunderball, right? Mm. I like the movie. The problem with the movie, there's no James Bond theme because they couldn't use it. So the music was kind of sucky. Yeah. So that's what is. So in other words, so if they do a new James Bond film that comes out in 2 years and they don't use the James Bond theme, there's no connection. What they're doing a Superman movie without the Superman theme, that's what it is. It's Superman. It doesn't matter who's playing Superman. That's the theme. That's his theme. James Bond, you can't do a James Bond theme without da da da.
Yeah,
da, da.
But let me just.
That's what it is. So that as far as that goes. But I agree that they should have had other themes. Give them a new theme for this film, but you could use that as an underscore the John Williams theme. But yeah, but that's the reasoning behind using that theme, was to make a connection for the audience that, oh, this is a different Superman, but it's the same Superman. It's like you have a new James Bond. You had Roger Moore, you had George Lazenby, you had Timothy Dalton. They were all James Bond, but they were different James Bonds, but it was the same James Bond because you had that same theme, and that's what runs through it. So that's my
I get
connection.
Your point there, but for me, the way I'm seeing it is James Bond didn't matter who played him. You always had that music. That music, the John Williams came out in what was it, 78? And right. How many we've had before that? We had Kirk Allen, we had George Reeves.
Right. That was before.
Yeah, no, I get that, but it's just.
But the Chris Reeve movie made an impact where it was really the first theatrical. No, it was the first of the first. The other guys, yeah.
No, I don't disagree there.
Now again, they haven't used that theme in the TV shows at all. So as far as that goes, so yeah, I give you that. But I understand why they did it. What they're going to do in the future, I don't know. But that's corporately, that's why they did it.
Okay,
branding basically. It's
yeah,
branding.
Yeah. So yeah, All right. I mean, look, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I just would like to see new stuff. That's just also me being an artist. I want something new. I don't want repeats constantly. Because if you're going to give me a repeat, I could just go watch the thing I loved originally. You know what I mean? I'd rather do that. So for me, that.
Yeah, maybe they should bring Hans Zimmer in for the next one and then put some good music there.
Hold on. I'm looking at my notes.
I would tell you guys to like watch Man of Steel again. Before coming on here, I wanted to make a comparison, and there was a lot of similarities. The flannel shirts that John and Clark wore, I couldn't put my finger on it. I thought it was Man of Steel, but it wasn't. But it might have been the original movie where they were both wearing flannels in that scene, father and son scenes with the younger Clark, not Chris Reeve, and the father. But I have to go back. But I know I've seen it either with Smallville or one of those interpretations where they were wearing the same color flannel shirts in one of these Superman interpretations. But I just couldn't put my finger on it. But you know, but we've been deep diving on these, you know, like I mean, like I told you, Michael, about like Mr. Terrific is basically Gus Gorman, Richard Pryor's character, the tech whiz, and then you got the fake kryptonite, but it's Metamorpho creating the fake kryptonite. You know, it's like it's the same concept, which is technically
Actually, it looked the same as the fake kryptonite in Superman 3.
Have,
it was the same
yeah,
shape.
you have the robotic chick who is supposed to, they said it was an engineer, but in the comics, engineer is a good guy. But then she's basically the pseudo brainiac chick from the third movie, and she tries to kill Superman in the exact same way. And Superman 3, the robot chick tries to kill Superman the same way by putting all the wires on him, and it was the exact same thing. And then you had, of course, Bizarro, which was in Superman 3, but then they cut it out, or actually Superman 4. And then you had the armor, the Iron Man version of Ultraman actually had a very similar logo to Superman 4's Chris Reeves radioactive man symbol, the sun and the star. So that was, it was almost, it was, they were basically saying, hey, this is, they gave it away themselves before you even saw the movie. Like, oh, that's the same, that armored guy is Ultraman because he has the same symbol as radioactive man.
And you didn't mention that Lex Luthor mentions, how did you do the clone? Oh, I got a piece of your hair and I took a D. Well, that's Superman 4. That's what Lex Luthor does in Superman 4.
Yeah, the only thing they don't have is the guy from Pretty in Pink who played Lex Luthor in the Supergirl.
Oh, John Cryer, yeah. Well, John Cryer played Luthor on the TV show, so there you go.
They don't have Luthor's nephew here, but I mean, but basically, remake of Superman 4 and Superman 3 with a combination of and Mark Wolfman.
You know, since you brought up the engineer, and anybody can chime in here and agree or disagree with me, but I'm a big fan of Superman the animated series. I really felt she was used more like Mercy when Mercy got, I guess, her upgrades to the tech. I just because of her loyalty to Lex and how much Lex was concerned about her, I felt there was, a very big mutual respect between them, and I felt that you could have had Mercy in her part for the most part from the animated series, and you would have had the same character.
Yeah, I don't think they.
How do we know that wasn't Mercy? That he turned it. How do you know that wasn't Mercy that got turned into that?
Well,
right?
Because he called her what was it, Angela? That's which is the actual engineer.
Okay.
But they are going to do a Wildcats film, so they already announced that. So that's why they brought the engineer. I mean, not Wildcats. What's it called? That other Jim Lee.
Stormwatch.
So they're going to do Stormwatch. So that's. And she was the leader of Stormwatch with Jenny Sparks. So,
okay, Rob, it looked like you were going to say something when I mentioned that. What did you have anything to add? Or
I'll be right back.
Okay.
On that particular section, no. I would say, I was thinking what I was thinking when you guys were talking about Snyder and listen, Gunn. I think making Gunn the head of DC Studios or whatever role they gave him. I think that's a little bit too much too soon, in my personal opinion. Have him make a couple of your movies, fine. Have some creative control, fine. But you just put him. Like, I don't think he proved himself. I don't think he proved himself with Marvel, with his films and his choices. His style of comic superhero movie, I don't see it fitting in this world. But he's recreating it. You know, they've given him this power, so there's not a lot of wiggle room here with regards to what they're going to do. It's pretty much they've given him the reins to an extent. And obviously it's WB, so they've got a lot of control themselves. But you know, I think they're. I wish he would have gone a different route. I think the film overall, I think it was too much too soon. I think somebody mentioned, Ray might have mentioned earlier, some of the other characters that had already put on screen in the DCU that Gunn has already confirmed are going to be part of his universe. It would have been nicer to see those characters pulled into here just to keep that continuity, as opposed to just bringing in all of these other elements.
Yeah.
You know, I think the film could have been fine, minimalized a little bit more, and save some of this for future projects. And on the tail end of that, I think everything that Zack Snyder had done was perfect? No. Certainly his cut of Justice League was far better than what was put out into theaters. And I think frankly, I think Warner Brothers is just the whole time has just been trying to catch up with something that was well thought out and well planned and well executed by Marvel Studios and Disney to an extent. I think they've just been playing catch up this whole time, and just we got to get, you know, if they had an ensemble film, we have to have one, and they have all these characters, we have to have those characters too. And they rushed and they crammed everything into these films and to rush everything to try and catch up, and they're just creating movies that just are not on par with and maybe that's because Marvel got the edge and had done stuff first, you know, to the success and the quality that they did, and anybody that comes after that is going to have big shoes to fill and a high benchmark to try and reach. So I'm going to cut them some slack in that sense.
DC's been making movies 30 years before Marvel, so it's like
well, I'm talking about in the modern era, you know. And what we've gotten in the last 20 or so years. I just would, if they're going to do something down the line, I would not mind, and there'll probably be some arguments here and disagreements, but I wouldn't mind if they do the same thing that Marvel did, which is not abandon altogether those other universes and those other incarnations of some of these characters and melded these universes, even if it's in one film, where you have some of the actors and characters from the Snyderverse in this universe that James Gunn is building. I would like to not see that totally just, you know, thrown to the wayside, because there is some quality in what Zack Snyder was putting together there, and I frankly like the darker, edgier, you know, more grim feel to the movie as opposed to the campy, you know. And I was joking online a couple of weeks ago, and before I ever saw the movie, and I was like, yeah, I don't know, I'm getting the vibe that this is going to be like calling it like the Suicide League, or, you know, some, you know, merging of Guardians of the Galaxy and Suicide Squad, and but I was honestly, in general, I was pleased with what I saw. I'm excited to see where he goes with what he's doing. Again, I wish they a little too much power too soon. But he's going 300%. You know, he's going 300 miles per hour and doing what he wants to do, and it's different. And that's what he set out to do, was give us something that we really hadn't seen, something that's never been done. And he's got people going to see the movie. He's got people talking about the movie. And he did what he needed to do as a filmmaker. So all credit to him.
I would suggest you watch the original 4 Superman movies, because I feel like this was just a reboot of those movies. Even the girls taking a selfie land of Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor is Landia. That's Gene Hackman. That's the guy in the Brandon Ruth Superman. It's always about land, Lex and land. It's like it's basically, I think Warner Brothers, and I don't think it's a James Gunn thing. I think Warner Brothers is stuck on formula. These are the people that put out 5 John Wick movies and then a ballerina. It's like they want the same movie over and over and over again. So Superman can never really be, and you can't get Lex Luthor in armor or Lex Luthor in anything cool that was in the comics, because they're really just stuck on this Chris Reeve Donner film. And if you remember, they fired Donner. He was so good that they fired him, right? It's like, because they want to do things cheap, fast, quick, and gimmicky. And this concept of superhero has to be corny to them.
They
like
fired.
84 was a reboot of Wonder Woman, and all the Batman movies are basically a reinterpretation of the 1960s TV show. They're all, with the exception of the Batman Begins and all that. But the Joker, Heath Ledger Joker, that was if you watch the first episode of Adam West, that was the same mask. The bank robber mask is from the first episode of the Batman TV show. And if you look at the last Batman movie, his mask looks just like Adam West's mask. So, and that was basically Seven and Adam West. It's like Batman. It's like they're just trapped in this thing that they feel like they have to do reboot, and they're not really open to anything new. And then the minute you get something new, they shit can it themselves. So I like Zack Snyder's take on it. Not everything, but I thought it was unique.
Well, I just want to say, I want to go back to something. Oh, Tom, did you want to say something before I go back to something?
You mentioned Richard Donner being fired, so I kind of was there, so I kind of know what went on. So I had a long conversation with Donner on the set of Superman, actually in Lex Luthor's lair, sitting there. They were just about going to shoot one of the scenes with Superman and Lex Luthor. So they were Gene Hackman, whatever. So we had about a half hour just chit-chatting with Donner. Donner is from the Bronx. Mm-hmm. So we talked about, movies and stuff, and he used to go and see all the serials at the Globe Theater on Pelham Parkway. So he saw the original, like Rocket Man and the original Superman serial. So he was well acquainted with this stuff. And he wanted to bring the reality of the characters to the movie, which the first one he did. And he got fired because he was arguing with the producers because they wanted to cut corners and screw around, because they were going to shoot the 2 movies together in one, as one film, and then cut it up. But then they fell so far behind, they said, okay, let's, stop shooting Superman 2 stuff. Let's just finish the first one. So then when he was going to go back to do 2, to finish it up, because he shot about 70% of Superman 2. Then they started, they wanted to cut corners, they wanted to change shit, whatever. He got an argument, they fired him. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's the same stuff of interfering, whatever. But
yeah, they want to make budget movies like Swamp Thing and then Swamp Thing 2, and they're horrible. They just, when it comes to superheroes, Warner Brothers should just keep it to cartoons.
Right, Swamp Thing 2, directed by my friend Jim Wynorski. Yes, it was cheap.
They want to do everything on the cheap, and it shows. I mean, you look at the last Blue Beetle movie; it would look cheap. The Black Adam, cheap. Everything.
I couldn't get through the first 10 minutes of that Blue Beetle movie.
It just they can't make up their mind if they want to be a Disney movie or a Marvel movie, and you already got Black Adam's Adam Smasher looking like Deadpool, and then we got Blue Beetle, and he looks just like Deadpool too. And then you got Vigilante, and he's also a Deadpool, and they all happen to be blue and black. it's like they're just like stuck on this thing. They can't get it out of their system that they want to imitate other stuff. You know, it's like,
right. DC missed the boat. Behind the success of Marvel was that they had a thread of continuity within the movies, which is the same thing they did when they were doing the comic books in the 60s. They had a continuity with all the comic books. They did the same thing in the movies, which is why I switched as a kid from DC to Marvel, because the DC books were not connected. There was no real connectivity. So when they did the movies, they connected the movies. And then when they started doing some of TV shows, they connected the TV shows to the movies. So they had, the Captain America one, and they didn't recast the Falcon. It's the same guy that did the Falcon, right? So 10 years ago, DC had the same opportunity to do that. They had the Arrowverse, and they had all the characters in the Arrowverse. And Greg Berlanti, who produced it, did a pretty accurate job of a lot of characters. He took a lot of stuff from the comic books and adapted it into the show. Like on Supergirl, he took a lot of stuff again from like the Silver Age comics and threw it into that show, which made those shows fun.
Yeah,
now,
that was a good show.
What they should have done, if they had half a brain, was that, okay, we have all these characters here. We're going to do a Superman movie. Do the Superman movie with the guy that played Superman on Supergirl, Tyler Hoechlin. Or do the Flash. You got the guy playing the Flash, Grant Gustin.
Right.
For like 10 years, he's the Flash. Right there, there's a built-in audience. Do the friggin' Flash movie with them. But no, we have to keep it separate because the egos of the film division, we don't want to do what the TV guys are doing. We're going to do our own better. And it didn't work.
Right.
It didn't work. It didn't work.
Smallville was supposed to, Superman Returns was supposed to be the Smallville actor. And then, whatever reason, he decided to bail out, whether he didn't get enough money or he was afraid of being typecast. You hear all these stories. And he basically bailed. But I remember seeing posters with him on it, like preliminary stuff, as him before Brandon Ruth, a whole year before Brandon Ruth. They had posters of him.
I don't remember any of this, but
yeah,
let's not sidetrack too much here.
The thing is that Warner Brothers sucks when it comes to super. Their best movie was Watchmen.
Yes.
All the Alan Moore adaptations, well, not all of them, but Watchmen and V for Vendetta are probably their best comic book adaptions that they've done. And anything that's non-superhero, I think their adaptions are good. But when it comes to these core characters of the Trinity, they just keep messing up.
I would like to come back to this, but I think we spent a lot of time on this topic. No. It's an interesting topic, but I don't want it to just become a bash Warner Brothers, because I'm not anti Warner Brothers. I just don't like their superhero movies, But I wanted to come back to something Rob said earlier about this being an ensemble cast movie, which it is, and that's, I think, the only thing James Gunn knows how to make. And that's one of my issues with this movie, is that he doesn't know how to focus on one particular character. And I feel this movie was hurt by that. Sometimes I feel like it was a Mr. Terrific movie over any other character, even Superman. Because Terrific did a lot of great stuff in that film. And he was a really good character, but because there were and this is something Rob and I spoke about offline, because there were so many characters added to it, I felt like the conflict, the danger really wasn't. Oh, Tom's gone.
Maybe his phone died.
Yeah, he'll be back. It wasn't really there for Superman, because it's like you remember
it should have been called Superman and Friends.
Well, who said it best? oh God, who was it? Ben Dunn from Antarctic Press. He had a post about it, and he said this really felt more like DC Presents than a Superman movie, and I had to agree with that. I mean, if you go back to the Chris Reeve movie, you remember he has to stop one missile, which can kill Lois Lane, basically, or one missile to kill Tess Mocker's mother, and he promised that he would go do it. Like he couldn't be in two places at once. But in this movie, there's the war going over in the country, and there's the splitting of basically Metropolis, and where is he going to go? Well, now you have a Green Lantern who can come up.
Right.
And just, sorry, you got me. There was a whole trailer, great scene. I always loved it in the trailer where this little kid is pulling up the thing and he's Superman, and you expect Superman to come, but then it's just Guy Gardner flipping off all these tanks with
the
middle finger constructs, and that really,
that was a missed opportunity for Supergirl to appear. That should have been Supergirl, not the Justice League.
Well, we're going to talk about Supergirl, but the way they're handling Supergirl is completely different. And but there is,
because at least the S is consistent, right?
Yeah, I mean, I get that, yeah. and that's one of the big things. Like, these are the things that kind of took me out of the movie, that made me like, ugh. Now the other thing, speaking of the middle finger constructs, and I know,
hey Mike,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Can I bring something up just because you mentioned that moment when you're expecting Superman to come in and you with this kid with the flag and everything, and it's Guy Gardner, which is fine. Nathan Fillion
he did a great job.
Interesting. It's interesting and hilarious to watch him in this role. And I felt like, at one point he forms a huge green hammer, and I felt like that, among other things, were like little throws and digs at the MCU. I think one of the after they defeat, I don't even know what the creature's name is, but that creature that grows to like be like 330 stories tall or whatever, breathing fire. And then they finally defeat it or whatever. And I think it's either, I don't know if it's like a news broadcast and the little ticker at the bottom, or was the Daily Planet, but it said, they defeat the Thing, and I felt another, because of the Fantastic Four coming out, another the dig at, and then the robot, his main robot out of all of them for some reason is the fourth one, number 4. Now I know that could have been pulled from again, comic world, but I felt like, why is it 4? Just all these little things that I didn't know if they were like little shots or just coincidence.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I noticed a few. I didn't even put the robot as maybe a dig to Marvel, but I did see some of the stuff that you were talking about,
and they were blue.
Yeah. I was like, why did he make the Superman robots look like that? Because the Superman robots, well, in the 60s they looked like Superman, but then in the 90s they looked like kind of cool cyborg versions of Superman, which were, I mean, with CGI, you can make anything look like anything. And instead he made them look like a bunch of he made it look like Science Theater 3000, Mystery Science Theater 3000. I'm like, what is this? You can design literally anything with CGI, and you went for the Mystery Science 3000, the little red lamp.
I gotta say, I actually like the design, it's like, of the robots. I enjoyed them. And Alec Tudyk as number 4 is just, I mean, he's a great voice actor. Yeah. So he's a great actor in general, but he does a lot of great voices. But I just wanted to go back to the whole thing I was about to say, because I get a lot of heat from this if I post online about it. And this is the one thing that if I had to pick any part of the movie that really bothered me, it is this, and it was the cursing. I think superhero movies should not have cursing, number 1. Yeah. But specifically in a Superman movie, and Superman, well, Clark or Superman, he says 2 of them, right? And I know he was repeating what someone was saying, but he did not need to repeat the curses. He's very much the Boy Scout. He's this good guy. One of the things, like Tom was talking about,
I agree.
Thank you. But you were talking about Marvel, and you kind of went back to Marvel because they had the continuation in the stuff. And but one of the things I've always felt the difference between DC and Marvel, and especially when you read Silver Age stories, is DC always felt larger than life. There was kind of a light to their characters. All their characters kind of had this purity to them. And Marvel was creating these characters with faults, which, I mean, good. It's great in storytelling, but, you kind of aspired to the morals of DC characters. At least that's how I felt reading them. I didn't aspire to the morals of Marvel characters, And when you look at something like this, I think putting curses in specifically in Superman is just completely wrong. I feel as a society we are desensitized to it. I had a kid sitting next to me. He was maybe 6, maybe 7 at the oldest. And I will say, I don't know if we were by a speaker or if the sound was off in our theater, but when certain scenes came on, he was covering his ears and I wanted to do the same. It was overly loud in my theater. But I'm sitting next to this kid, and they're literally saying shit a couple of times and all this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have a bad mouth. I know when I'm not on the air here or I'm not in a professional setting, I curse really bad.
The Chris Reeve movie did curse, though.
They said the word ass in there. I know that one of the villains that he grabs says "move your ass" to one of his other teammates. I know that, but and that's the only thing about the Chris Reeve movie I'm not happy with.
There was a black guy that says "holy shit" or something like that when Superman's on the sidewalk and then flies up to catch the helicopter. So,
I don't remember him cursing.
But he curses it when he goes save Lois Lane. The guy curses. Yeah,
I'd have to go back. I only remember one guy saying, like "move your ass" or something. Yeah. But
and then the bar.
I was shocked to hear. I was shocked to hear cursing in this, and there were a lot of little kids in the theater.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
That's
well,
that
kids,
is my
kids aren't pure like they used to be.
and that's the problem too. And I'll be honest. I started counting the curses in there. I counted 12 curses, not counting the middle finger constructs.
Right.
I'm like, that's way too much for a Superman film. It's 12 too many in my opinion. Yeah. But
was it PG or PG-13?
I don't remember, but it should be PG. I think Superman, like there are certain characters out there, Superman being one of them, shows like Scooby-Doo, all this stuff should not be made into like an adult thing. These have been around so long that like this is something a little kid could enjoy with his parents, with his grandparents, aunt, uncle. There's been interpretations in every generation of this character that people, I mean, my dad still remembers the George Reeve interpret. That was his Superman. I grew up, I watched the George Reeve stuff. I watched Christopher Reeve. I watched Dean Cain. I watched both John Newton and Gerard Christopher as Superboy. I watched, I watched Kirk Allen. You name it. If it was in live action or cartoon, I've watched Superman. And I've even listened to the old radio shows. There is a goodness in that character that, all this stuff that everybody's talking about, like, being kind is the new punk rock, which is whatever, line from the movie, or all this stuff going on. And like, you're supposed to bring this, good look at the goodness of David Cornsweet's Superman. And then you throw this in there. And I'm like, I felt that was wrong, and I know Tom agrees with me. But anybody else here kind of feel that, or am I kind of a fool for thinking?
I could have swore there was a George Reeves episode where he smacked Lois and said, "Bring me a beer."
I doubt that one. I highly doubt it. I watch him every Saturday and Sunday.
Well, it wasn't in the first season because Phil's coach would have punched him back. Maybe Noel Neal would have taken it, but Phil's coach the first season would have punched him.
But Superman 2 and Superman 3 also had curses in it. Lana Lang's husband cursed at Christopher Reeve when he comes drunk to that. Well, you get a.
Yeah, he was an alcoholic. I mean, in his defense.
And then in the second movie, the truck stop scene where Superman fights the trucker, whoops him out. It was cursing in there.
I don't remember. I have to go back and see some of this stuff, but I'm just saying, like,
now the Henry Cavill movie, I don't think there was curses in that one. 'Cause
I
was
don't
watching that
remember,
yesterday,
but
and I
I'd have to rewatch that again. And I'm not saying, you can't have curses in movies. I just don't think they should be in
yeah, of course,
Superman.
in children's films, yeah.
Yeah, in films that everybody can enjoy. Like I said, I
I
don't want to
agree
see
with you there.
Scooby Doo become an adult character. I don't want to, I don't want to see certain characters go in directions because they have such a vast history that
Yeah.
they could be loved by so many. And you want to be able to sit down with, there's so many people out there who like, in our age group that have kids. I don't, but like
Mhm.
there's a moment for mostly fathers, I would assume, where you want to sit down and show your kids Star Wars. Like it had such an effect on us that like I can't wait to sit down and show Star Wars. Just
I
like
felt like that with the
to
WB shows. I felt like I couldn't have my son sit down and watch the WB shows when he was little because of all the innuendos,
mhm.
gender bending, all this stuff, and the sexuality stuff in there. Like it's just like it's like I always feel like Hollywood, and it's the same thing with the Thor movies. The Thor movies have a big problem where they seem kid friendly, but then they have all these like jokes about orgies and jokes about and then it's almost like it's almost setting a pedophilia tone to it, which doesn't. It's like, what are we doing here?
I wouldn't go that far.
I mean, if you watch the one with the Hulk, all right, this is a kids movie. They make it kid friendly, and then they're talking about orgies, and the last movie they had another orgy joke in the last Thor movie. So they had Thor number 3 and Thor number 4 talking about orgies, and then you have these kid scenes right after, and then they keep having sex jokes while you're having.
I'll be honest, Ray. It sounds sometimes like you watch different movies than me.
Hey, watch it. I'm just telling you, it's there.
I can't say I remember
The whole
these.
scene with Zeus, they talked about orgies.
Oh, I'm not. Listen,
but I mean,
move
I
on.
just feel like this is
right.
this is the studio that brought you Epstein Island, so we should
Okay.
be surprised.
All right, let's move on.
All right. Let's go somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's go somewhere else.
So let.
We're
Okay.
getting
So
off
I
base
just
here.
I just mentioned something
All right.
I really didn't like about the film.
Mhm.
Is that and honestly, if there was one major critique, that is it for me. If I had to pick one thing that I truly hated, I'm going to start with Rob, then go to Tom, and then you, Ray. Can you tell me something that really you didn't like, that you wish maybe was changed, not part of the movie, and then we're going to do something that we all, maybe enjoyed about it. Rob, can you?
Yeah, probably if I had to pick one thing that I wish could have just been removed from the story altogether, it would have been the rift in the universe kind of thing, and another universe where he has this prison. I think eliminating all of that, I think he could have done it in a different way that didn't need all of that. I think it was just too much. Like I said to you privately, like when you first were, after you saw the movie, I felt like it should have been a sequel movie as opposed to like a first movie. And it's not because there's a lack of an origin story. We don't need an origin story. We know how he came to be. He puts literally at the very beginning, he gives you the timeline 300 years ago, 3 months ago, 3 days ago, all that stuff. I was cool with that. I think it didn't need all of that craziness with regards to like, rifts and the universe splitting and or whatever was happening there. I think it was just too much for this particular movie. I don't think it needed it. That's the one thing I would probably change, or that I didn't like about it.
Tom, what about you?
Well, there's a couple of things. I kind of agree with him as far as the black hole thing, although it became instrumental to the plot. And I think Ray mentioned something that maybe this is like boom tube dark side technology to somehow.
Oh yeah, I was actually talking to Ray about that one. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's kind of that. But the thing that actually I could have done without, believe it or not, is the whole kaiju thing. It was kind of stupid. I mean, yeah, you have a monster fighting, but then the whole thing. They're gonna kill the monster. Green Lantern wants to kill the monster. And like Superman says, well, can't we just send it to like an interplanetary zoo, which is something like the Kurt Swan Superman would have said in 1964. But the thing that bothered me more is they kill him. He falls. This is like this 20, 30-story thing falls, and so where do they drag it to? Where do they clean it up to? I mean, it was, and then later on in the movie, you're in the same downtown area of Metropolis. There's no monster. I think, more than a day or so would have taken more to get rid of that thing. So to me, that was like,
he was in Japan when that monster came out.
Yeah.
That wasn't Metropolis.
No, that wasn't. He was.
You sure
He was.
Metropolis?
I don't know if he was in. No, it was in Metropolis. Because he's. I think we see the Daily Planet.
No, but there was like tons of Japanese ads all around they were in Japan. They were not in Metropolis.
Oh, were they? I thought they were in Metropolis with that. But the one thing I will
that
say
I didn't even notice.
In
some
iterations,
wait, no. It couldn't be. It had to be Metropolis because it was like American kids. There was a little dog. There was like a black girl. So it wasn't Japan.
All the signage was Japanese. Like all the ads and stuff were Japanese around the buildings and stuff.
Well, I'll have to go back.
You gotta go back.
I had to see
but
the movie
I'm gonna
again.
wait for it to come to streaming. I'm not paying to see that movie again.
Yeah.
But no, the only thing I want to say is, Tom, just on your point with the kaiju was, when he says, "Can we take it to an interplanetary zoo?" In certain iterations, I remember just specifically in the animated series, he created like a zoo in the Fortress of Solitude. He had a place, a sanctuary. But see, that would have been a perfect thing. Figure out a way to shrink them, and would have been a great way to show how. I mean, because it was showing that he cares, but and it just goes to show that the other heroes have no issue killing, which I didn't like. I mean, so again, that just on your point with that.
Right. But that was the
would have been a much better post-credit scene than what we got.
Yeah.
To me, what it was also is like, we have a monster. Oh, we can sell the toy. They do have a toy with kaiju and we can sell a toy to monster.
Remember, the toy comes with this exploding stomach with goo, which they probably removed from the final cut of the film. So it's probably more graphic. The toy is more graphic.
Right.
And that kid's like slime.
Right. Exactly.
I would have removed that whole pointless plot device of Baby Joey from the All in the Family making his metamorphose baby. It's like give me a break. I felt like
apparently that is in the comic book. Apparently that is in the comic books.
It's the character,
whatever.
The plot device, it's not about whether the baby is, for me, it's the plot device. The way it was used, it just didn't make sense. Metamorpho is a superhero.
But it's James Gunn. James Gunn does that stuff.
Yeah, but he should have had more integrity than, turning his head into kryptonite, into Gus Gorman's kryptonite. I just feel like, and again, missed opportunity. We saw all these they kept saying that this is the beginning of James Gunn's DC universe. We saw the Flash, we saw the Blue Beetle, we saw the Black Adam, we saw all these films, and none of those characters made an appearance. That was a perfect appearance for either a new casted Shazam, right? Since they approached him with the JSA, that could have been, you could have seen like, I don't know, Suicide Squad. You could have seen any of these characters, not Peacemaker. What the lamest of the lame. They makes an appearance. That was like the worst worst DC interpretation of a character ever. I would have liked to see.
Actually, it's a Charlton character. Excuse me. It's not a DC character. It's a Charlton character.
Right. Exactly.
Peacemaker.
I mean, they could have had.
This is what DC does. Let me just say one thing. This is what DC does. They buy the characters from defunct companies. And then they make the history of DC. They put in Captain Moon mention it's Fawcett and make it people think that was created by DC, and then the same thing with Black Hawk, the same thing with Blue Beetle, whatever. They make it sound like DC created them, and they're all taken from other companies. So one
But
gripe I have.
legally, if they own it, they could do what they want.
They
with it.
can say whatever they want.
I'm not going
I
to
know.
argue that point. Warner Brothers, when
I
they
know.
finally got Hanna-Barbera, by like 2000, 2001, they started removing the Hanna-Barbera name from like the Cartoon Network shows that were being made that were still under like the Hanna-Barbera title. So, I can't fault them for that. They own the stuff; it's theirs. But
Whatever.
It's like
But-
if you're gonna introduce Maxwell Lord's Justice League, then have Maxwell Lord's Justice League. Like go full throttle with it.
I think the one thing I will say about Gunn is that he will build to something. I know that one of the and this is what I said and why I didn't like the other movies was that DC came out with, because they fill them with too many characters. Like Marvel built a universe, one movie on top of another, and we got to love these. And they started with really B-tiered characters from the Marvel comics. Nobody outside of comic fans, nobody really knew who Iron Man was, but his movie was great. Now, if DC took a note from that, they just don't want to waste the time building. Like I've always said, Marvel had great tech characters. DC has great magical characters that could have opened worlds. Now, I'm not saying this because he's one of my favorites, but I would have loved to have seen them start with like a Dr. Fate movie. Or maybe like a Spectre movie, a Dr. Fate, or like a Spectre movie.
Yes.
Would have been a great introduction to the magical world of DC. You then have characters you can access, eventually going into Wonder Woman because she falls under mythology. Aquaman falls under mythology. You could have characters like Solomon Grundy, who's mystical, being brought back,
Right.
these great villains and stuff, and all these other characters that would be like, oh yeah, well, I know Batman, I know Superman, and now because you mentioned them, we can bring, because everyone knows who Batman is. They've been just making those movies forever. Let's introduce other characters for the audience to get excited about, and then you bring in the big guns to connect. Like, okay, well, Aquaman is cool, but Aquaman knows Batman. Let's have Batman come out and talk to him about something, or what, you know what I mean? Like you could have done stuff, or they have great space characters, and you could have started with a Green Lantern or an Adam Strange, or like, to me, that's how DC should have always attacked the filmmaking of their movie, going back to even before, Man of Steel. I'm talking like going back to
1940s.
No, not the 40s. Well, I mean, in comics, yeah, but I'm talking about like what the hell is his name? The Christian Bale Batman. Like, were they? I mean, I'm not a huge fan of those movies, but they're okay.
Yeah.
But eventually, Batman is he wasn't Batman. You know what I mean?
Batman. They focus on the villains too much. That's the fault with the Batman movies. They put more stock in the villain than the actual main character, Bruce Wayne.
So, but that's the thing for me, is I would have liked to have seen individual stories bring Dr. Fate. I mean, how great Dr. Fate, the balance, basically of good and evil, order and chaos right there, and explains the universe and how it works, and who, and you could have done a whole story of, people being, kind of maybe manipulated by the order of chaos and stuff. Like they
mentioned Mixoplick there in the film, and then
I won't say
they could have went deeper into that. Listen, they didn't.
They said it's a magical imp. They didn't specifically.
That's the only imp in Superman is the imp.
But I mean,
I really remember that part. I didn't catch that one.
That was where he was putting on his boots, and him and Lois kiss, and he says, "I'm turning myself in, and I love you." And he's like, she's basically like, "Should you go out and do it?" He's like, "Oh, the other guys have got it. It's just an imp, magical imp."
Oh.
That was it. And I'm like, okay, they're probably talking about Mxyzptlk, but he's a super. But I didn't think it was him, because he's specifically a Superman guy, and he'd want to screw around with Superman, not. He wouldn't want to fight the other people,
right.
So that's
like Starro a little bit.
Yeah. But
yeah.
But before we get into like something we really like, I do want to mention something that again bothered me, and I think I mentioned this to Ray and Rob offline. there was no, and this is something I feel is very integral to Superman, specifically if you're really kind of building off the Silver Age, which Gunn says is what was a big inspiration. There was no rip open your shirt moment. This is a job for Superman type of thing. And they had a perfect spot to put it in my opinion. And that when he was in Smallville at his parents' place and he's watching the TV and his mom instead says, I just washed your boots. I'll go get them. But she could have said something like, I think you need to change your clothes. And he would have said, okay, you know what I mean? And just tore the shirt open. And like, that would have been a perfect moment to show the intensity of Superman.
But then,
yeah.
It would have been a perfect moment to see that the collar is sticking out of his shirt.
I get that. Yeah. No,
I get that. Like, wait a minute, they got stuffed it. I got the collar stuffed. I got to pull the collar up now. So I got to hide the collar from my shirt.
And you know what? But that's probably a good reason why they didn't have it. I didn't even think of that until now.
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
There wasn't even any.
Wait, hold on. Too many people. Go to Rob first.
They cannot do a Chris Reeve thing because the freaking collar is sticking up out of his, It's so stupid. Right. You're right. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
Tom, sit back. We're like,
hold on. Let's
see your
feelings.
Okay.
I'm having a stroke. All
right, guys. All right. Tom, go see a doctor. Rob, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say that now that you mentioned it, there was really no scene in that movie where there was that transition. You either saw him in regular civilian clothes or in the Superman outfit, but never a moment where he transitioned, whether he was ripping his shirt open or went into a phone booth or went behind a wall and came out the other side. There was none of that. It was just completely one scene to the next scene. There was no transition. And I guess because they couldn't execute it in a way that they felt would either look silly or just they just felt that there was no need for it, or there was just, I mean, I don't want to say it was sloppy, but they just avoided that for whatever reason.
Probably the movies had it.
Right. I know you're a fan of the Snyderverse. It's never coming back. Just accept it. Okay. Now, the thing I got to say, here's something that I really enjoyed about the movie. I do wish there was more of it, but I really enjoyed the planet, the Daily Planet. I enjoyed the cast so much in there. I would have liked to have seen more of Kat and Steve, like the interactions between them or just them with the rest of the group. But I really thought that the group was so well casted and we didn't get enough of the planet that I loved every moment I got to see the planet, the team of the planet interact. And that's something I really love about the film.
They actually gave Jimmy Olsen something to do.
Yeah, I think.
And Jimmy Olsen was integral to the plot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that they should have had. This would be great for an HBO Max Superman TV series, but for a theatrical film, I no. I mean, like you said, like it has that Lois of Clark feeling to it, and I would have loved to seen more of that as well, like the planet people.
Yeah,
these are like really good actors.
I thought Perry was great. He was one of my favorites.
He's been in a bunch of stuff too.
Yeah.
It's just like,
well, he's a Tony Award winner. This guy has been around. He did Death of a Salesman on Broadway. He won a Tony for that. Though he's been around. Yeah, he's great. I was surprised that his part was so small.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I thought everybody's there was small. I mean, Jimmy and Lois obviously had the most to do, and and I will say this, and maybe this goes back to what Rob said, where we feel that we need a sequel. It feels more like a sequel movie than anything. Is that I don't think Clark and Lois had the best on-screen chemistry. I think they needed another film to build up the relationship between them, because they say they've only been together 3 months in this movie, and I'm like, I would have liked to have seen how, me personally, I would have liked to have seen how they started to maybe where they ended up starting the relationship, because just jumping into it, there wasn't as much relationship drama as you would think in that
Right.
film.
There's a reason for that, though, because James Gunn said that this movie takes place after the Donner Superman 2. He said that.
Okay.
He said
I
that
didn't hear
before.
that, but I'll have to look.
So
that
that's
up.
why I said it's like a reboot of 3 and 4, because
Okay.
he wanted to establish that the whole Christopher Reeves movies are legit. Kind of Brandon Routh did the same thing. Brandon Routh's film takes place after Superman 2.
Yeah, 5
But
years.
this one did the same thing. It's where it's the same universe. So this is technically our Christopher Reeve Superman's world, but later. So without the magic kiss where she forgets stuff.
But with an added collar.
Yeah.
But with an added collar.
Yeah, with the Bill Cosby kiss, he's like, "Oh, you forgot. You don't remember anything."
Right.
Oh my god.
I mean, the sitcom.
Okay, right. Tell me something you thoroughly loved about this film.
Crypto.
Everyone's gonna say the dog.
Crypto.
I think
Crypto's going to be my next thing to get to after this. But if
Crypto
that's
is cool, but I
We
would
have to do a crypto movie. I want a crypto movie.
well, hold on, Tom. We'll get to you. Let's hear.
All right.
I like the crypto scenes. I mean, he stole the film, but I honestly, I think, like Rob said, the whole thing about holding a Superman flag and Guy Gardner shows up. I mean, it was funny, but it should have been more like Supergirl comes. He says, "I brought some friends." Let's see your friends, not these. Yeah, that was a perfect opportunity to show cameos of Blue Beetle, Dr. Fate, all these heroes that we've seen. Supergirl.
Can I interrupt you for because I asked if what you loved about the movie, and you're telling me something that kind of sounds like something you didn't like.
No, I'm not saying that. I just felt like I wanted more. I liked the movie. I liked the movie a lot.
Well, no, I'm talking in specific.
The dog. I think the dog was the Baby Yoda of the film, right? Baby Joey didn't make it, and Baby Yoda was the dog. So it was a chick flick for and dog lovers movie, So I think the dog was more compelling than Christopher Reeve. Dare I say, especially when he destroys the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah.
He has more, I think, but I would have also liked to see, you got the dog Krypton, and then you have him locked up in this thing. I thought it would have been cool if the dog was actually there helping him fight that giant monster. That would have been, you got the dog, you got the cape. Get him to fight the giant monster, let him bite his nose or something. The dog should have been a more interesting plot device used more, instead of just a cameo.
Okay.
Imagine he grew Crypto like Clifford and he fought the kaiju. That would have been
something right out of a 1960s comic book. I will say that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the dog was underused,
Okay. Rob, you were going to say something?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Crypto, I don't know if he was underused. I think he was used enough. I mean, because again, he's going and taking risks in a sense that, yes, we've seen him animated. We've seen him obviously in the comics. I don't know if any of the TV shows ever had Crypto in it. I don't recall that I saw. But yeah, so he, Gunn is, taking liberties and doing something different out of the norm. So taking a risk on something that people either would have loved or hated. I felt like Crypto could have really been a Jar Jar Binks of this movie if depending on the fan base. So he was gonna give us just enough of it and not go overboard. But if I had to pick one thing that I think succeeded with this movie that I liked, it's gonna be Corin Sweat's performance. I think is the thing that I like the most. But if something else that we haven't talked about that I personally liked, I think I liked how they portrayed Martha and Jonathan Kent. Very different than anything we've ever seen in any iteration of these characters. You kind of feel I felt more sympathy for them than I did for Superman. At the one point, I think after after Lex releases the full recording that Jor-El and Superman's mother sent to him, you know, and they show, you know, Clark's, you know, phone, and there's 22 missed calls from his parents. I actually felt sympathy for those people. You felt like they're really like homely, you know, poor, weak people that, you know, and so those characters for some reason resonated with me. They were very, very small, minimal roles, not really pivotal in any kind of way in the story at all. I mean, Jonathan didn't even, you know, he lived throughout the whole movie. You know, every other film has killed him off, but I kind of liked the way that they portrayed those characters. If I had to pick a second thing that I liked outside of the casting of Superman and the performance, it's how those characters were portrayed.
You know what I just want to say about the parents. You know, when they first came on screen, you feel like they're kind of pathetic people, but you know, and I felt like, wow, this is just a terrible portrayal. But I loved when he was when Martha was talking to Clark on the phone, and she's screaming into the phone. I've had family members kind of like do that. It was very relatable. But for a while, you think his father is kind of very weak, very I don't want to use the word pathetic, but because I just used that, but maybe sick, or, you know, something's going wrong with him. And then when they have the conversation where he's sitting outside and his father sits down next to him, I thought that was one of the best, father-son Superman moments we've ever seen. Mm-hmm. I like Kevin Costner as an actor, but I thought he was a terrible Jonathan Kent. And I'm like, wow, this is just terrible the way he's portraying him. Mm-hmm. But I thought this guy really nailed the personality of who Jonathan is, with only seeing him in one movie. When you watch something like Smallville, you had 5 seasons of the father, and you got to see him kind of develop. This is the first introduction, and I kind of liked, the more I think about it, how kind of weak and pathetic they kind of introduced the parents as, because to me it felt, number one, so human compared to their son, who is so remarkable, you know, and I really ended up, because leaving the theater, I was like, oh, I hate that they portrayed him this way. I did like the speech, but I hate, more and more I thought about it, I'm like, wow, this was a really good pick, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you almost feel happy that.
This is a missed opportunity that Brandon Roth used that S in the Crisis, the CW show, and they didn't bring it back. I mean, that's the way it should have been, exactly like that. You know, the red and black. You know, they could have brought Brandon Roth back. They already reintroduced him.
No, we'll right. We'll talk about that.
That's a possibility. I think that would have been great. You know.
Yeah. Well, I was always hoping they would do something, but let's let Rob finish what he was saying.
Sorry about that, Rob. Go ahead.
No, you're good. No, I like that suit, actually. It looks cool. No, I was just going to say, you almost, when it, you know, with and this is the last thing I'll talk about them, but yeah, Jonathan and Martha, you almost feel like, oh, thank God, out of all the people on the planet, like those are the two that ended up with Clark, you know, because you would, like, I know without Clark, like those people that, like, Jonathan would have been long gone, and I don't know if it's like, they seem just so old and feeble in a sense, you know, that, you know, you just feel lucky for them that was the son that they found, or that they got to kind of, you know, rear them and looked out for them over the years. But yeah, so that's you know, I think that was a very kind of like unintended, or maybe it was intended. You know, I can't jump in James Gunn's head, but I think it was just another level of just making Clark more human, you know, more of a human being, you know, as opposed to an alien. You know, you've given him the most human parents that you could possibly imagine. You don't feel that way with Kevin Costner and Diane Lane. I'm sorry. I look at them and that's Kevin Costner and Diane Lane. Like my disbelief was not suspended was not
The hot
suspended
mom.
in Man of Steel, but in this movie, like my disbelief was suspended.
Yeah.
I was, and same thing with Lex Luthor too. That was probably the other. If I had to pick the third
Yeah.
thing that I loved,
Well,
was
yeah.
Hulk.
Well, we were going to get to. I wanted to get to Lex after we got to Crypto, since Crypto was brought up, and I mean, I know, Tom, you loved Crypto. Ray, that's on your top
Right,
list as
crypto
well.
was top, but I now that Rob was talking, yeah, it's like the parents. I think the parents first. I go with Rob, and then crypto.
Okay. And then
What was
Crypto.
great about that, and I got it right away. I didn't see them as pathetic or whatever. I saw them as elderly parents because if you remember the early comics and the George Reeves series, this was an older childless couple that find the baby.
Yeah.
They couldn't have a child. They found this baby, and so basically they were like kind of like my parents. My mother had me at 40. So when I was like 20, she already was like 62 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is what, so he's got elderly parents, right? But they brought him up right. And then the accents, they talk like people from the Midwest because apparently the actor playing Jonathan was basing it on his upbringing and his background in the Midwest. So they had that accent, they had that attitude. But then the first thing you say, oh, they seem like Hicks. But then later on, you say, no, they have wisdom. They have wisdom, especially, and you're right, because it's like Smallville and Man of Steel. Martha and Jonathan are like hot parents.
Mm-hmm.
It's like John Schneider and what's her name, Lana Lang. They're hot. Diane Lane, and they're odd parents. These look like real parents.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Real parents should look like, not like models or I mean that's the way they should be. I think people get they were like used to Diane Lane, they were used to whatever, kind of like the Dean Cain version where they were older people, but they weren't like kind of Hicks. They were kind of hip.
They were 90s hip parents.
It was 90s hip, but they were older. They were not young, hotties.
Yeah.
So I think that Gunn casted very well the parents. So yeah, I kind of think that was kind of like the little gem in the film. We kind of like want to see more of that, and I agree with you. Like Clark was lucky to get these people, rather than a couple of hotties, whatever.
No, that was his birth parents. Were the hot ones, I guess. Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, I don't remember the
that's right. There you go. Bradley Cooper. And yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
That was the that you're right.
Let me say this about Crypto, because I think we've all kind of talked about him, and if anyone wants to add in anything afterwards, feel free to. But I think we all can say Crypto was great. Everybody loves Crypto. If you don't like dogs, you're an evil man anyway. You're Lex. But I am so upset that they showed so much Crypto in the trailers and everything, because I think the surprise of Crypto in the theater would have been so much fun to see the jump on the big, like, who's that running when he's whistling, what's going on there, to see him jump on him. Like I've saw it so many times in the trailer that I was like, okay, I know this scene. And I will be honest, there was very little laughter from my theater. I kind of gave a little like twice in the entire film.
You're right.
It I don't think I heard many people even clapping after the film was over. It because I think everything that made that film great was basically exposed to us even before.
Commercials, yeah.
Yeah, in the trailer, the
30 minutes
commercial,
is
even
from the
before.
commercials.
What?
The spoilers.
This is what they
Yeah.
do now.
Yeah,
This is what
no,
they do now in trailers and
Yeah.
publicity. They give everything away. If you look at modern trailers, basically give the whole film away,
Yep.
including the endings. If you look at the trailers from the 1940s and 1950s, they give you little bits of action, whatever. They don't give the whole movie away. This is the and also the publicity. Well, we got to get people in. They like dogs. We'll show them Krypton. So they showed every scene, and it's like, I saw the scene 100 times of Crypto dragging. I mean, the first trailer that Gunn brought in was the whole sequence from the beginning of the friggin' movie. So it's like, oh, I saw this whole thing already. It's kind of like, you're right. No surprise. That would have been, absolutely, that would have been a great surprise. Oh, there's the dog. Wow, it's Crypto. So yeah, they blew that as far. I mean,
I don't think the marketing for the movie was done well at all. That's just my personal, and it could have been so much better, built up so much more excitement. I would have even loved to have not seen any of the other heroes that are going to be in it, because that would have been, oh, there's a cameo of Mr. Terrific, of Hawkgirl, of
right.
Whoever, Guy, and all that stuff. And I think keeping those things a little secretive would have been a lot more fun and enjoyment and excitement.
Well, that's again, WB did that. They spoiled the end of Black Adam because they were afraid of ticket sales, and they spoiled Henry Cavill at the end of Black Adam. It's like, why are you showing us the beginning of the movie? It's like, the ending of the movie. It's like, they do it themselves. I mean, Gunn
the trailers for this movie were horrible. A lot of people say, "Oh, I hate this movie." They haven't even seen the movie yet. I hate this movie. Superman has a dirty costume. It's like, yeah, because the trailers stink on this movie.
Well, I think that Mr. Terrific really was the glue that binded all the elements.
He was terrific. He was terrific.
Good adjective for that.
Mr. Terrific was terrific. I think if you didn't have the Mr. Terrific character binding everybody together, I think the movie would have been a flop. I mean,
you're right.
If it was just a cameo of Green Lantern and Hawkgirl, which basically that's what they were, and the Mr. Terrific is what connects the Lois Lane world to the Superman world and bridged them together.
Yeah, but the thing is, for me, like I said before, this is not a Superman movie to me.
Oh no, it's not.
And it's because of.
But if it didn't have any of those characters, it would be a weak movie.
But
they would have had to
do a better story.
Movie. It's a Justice League movie.
Yeah, basically.
It was an intro to it. That's how I saw it. But
if you didn't have any of those characters, if you didn't have the dog or the Justice League, and it was just Corn Sweet and Brosnan, I don't think it would have been a successful film. You would have another repeat of Brandon Roth's Superman.
Well,
I just had a thought.
I mean, we would have had a different story. What? Go on, Tom.
Yeah. I just had a thought. I'm thinking, Mr. Terrific in this movie was acting the part of Batman. Think about it.
Yes.
Everything that Mr. Terrific did in this movie, if it was Justice League and it was Batman, it would have been exactly the same.
Yeah.
Batman would have brought Lois in there, and he would have all the knowledge and technical gizmos and everything, and also he would have been able to kick ass of all those guys at that camp the way Mr. Terrific did. And then he would have all the knowledge to be able to get into the black hole there or whatever. So this is if this was an episode of Justice League Unlimited, it would have been Batman, not Mr. Terrific.
Yeah, because Mr. Terrific
think about that.
Justice Society
So
of
Mr. Terrific
America.
is Batman.
It makes sense that everything was JSA for the last 5 movies, and then they give you the JSA, but then they're called the Justice Gang. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Terrific is the leader of the JSA, which he should have been the leader in the Black Adam movie, not Hawkman, because
right.
Snyderverse
is over. I'm just letting you know that.
But that's not Snyderverse. Black Adam is not Snyderverse. That's
at the end of
Snyder was already out for 3 years when that movie came out.
But Superman showed up at the end of that movie, connecting it to the Snyderverse.
That's because Zaslav originally wanted to bring back
No, I get that, but I'm just saying it's not part of this
Still,
universe.
Snyder wasn't part of that, the future going forward,
Yeah.
but he was going to be the returning Superman.
Yeah.
And then what was it? The Rock's wife kind of fucked it up because she was their agent, and it was basically all this Hollywood shit, and then egos and rewrites and
I don't know. I didn't pay attention to that stuff.
yeah.
But
If you really look at what happened between like Suicide Squad, why we got Joaquin Phoenix and no longer Jared Leto for the standalone Joker movie, it was because of their agents. If you look at Black Adam and Henry Cavill's situation, it was an issue with agents. It was agents clashing with the studios, and that's why we ended up with these shit movies instead of the actors that we wanted. You know.
I want to make a comment.
okay.
Go on YouTube. Last night, James Gunn was interviewed on Late Night with Seth Meyers, and actually, he was pretty cool. I was talking to Ray earlier. He's a comics fan. He was talking about how he read like Superman comics to learn how to read when he was 5. So he's a fan. I mean, he himself was an artist. He did like underground comics in college. So I think he's pretty cool. Maybe he shouldn't write the movies, but I think I like them. But he made one comment to Seth Meyers. Oh, we're having other characters come in. Yes, and we've got in this universe, and we've got the Michael Reeves' Batman 2 is coming. So it's like, oh, does that mean that version of Batman is going to be the Batman of this universe, even though they were like denying it?
I hope
So it's
not.
like,
I think they're still
Okay.
denying it. So
I'm
I
done
think.
with the Kurt Cobain Batman. I don't want any more of that.
All right. Listen, we've hit the
Whatever.
2-hour mark. I don't want to go too much longer, but there's a few more things I want to talk about. So number one, we'll go to Rob after this, but Lex Luthor. He was my favorite character, I think, probably of all in this film. I loved how evil he was. I loved how he was a combination of the Silver Age comic version mixed with the John Byrne version from '86. So to me, Lex, like if Lex had a mustache, he'd be twirling it throughout the movie. He was like that great old school evil, you know? And I just loved him in this film. Rob, what are your thoughts on Lex?
Oh yeah, he's in this movie. I think he was my favorite version. I mean, Gene Hackman is just, you kind of almost can't compare because you can never compare someone who did a role now versus somebody that did it years ago, because that person that's doing it now has had the privilege of seeing that prior performance. So you can never really compare them fairly. But no, Nicholas Hoult did a tremendous job, and I don't care if it's a TV show, I don't care if it's a movie, it doesn't matter what content or subject matter it is, but I always gauge somebody's performance in a role. If I am lost in the film or in that character, and I stop thinking of that person, well, this guy is British and he's doing an English accent, which he did a phenomenal job. Phenomenal. He could probably teach Henry Cable a thing or two about doing that. But I got lost in the fact that I was watching him, and that dude was Lex Luthor, and I like had a visceral, like, I hate this motherfucker. Kind of those moments, between the, what he did with Crypto and the domestic kind of abuse with the girlfriend, and how he treated his employees, like knocking shit on the floor and saying, pick that up, like that kind. I hated him. And if you could get me to that point with any character that I hate who this guy is, and I really hope at the end of it, like, they break his neck and kill him. You've got me. And he did a tremendous job, because he's been, like I said to you, I mean, he's pretty much been a protagonist in every film that he's done, from portraying Beast, and even in, I think, Warm Bodies or whatever that zombie movie was. He was a good guy. He's been a good guy. I don't think I've seen him play a villain much. I don't know if in the Mad Max movie he was a villain or what, but But no, he's this was I mean, frankly, a huge step for him, in my opinion, in terms of my respect that I have for him as an actor. But I loved him as Lex, and one of my favorite Lex. I'm going to give Kevin Spacey a shout out. I liked Kevin Spacey's Lex in Superman Returns. Had a little bit more of that vicious side to him that Gene Hackman lacked. But yeah, Nicholas Hoult did a tremendous job as Lex. Loved him in that role in this.
All right, no, I can't disagree with anything you said there, Tom. What are your thoughts on him?
I pretty much agree. Yeah, I think that probably looking back, Nicholas Hoult was probably like the best Lex Luthor. The best Lex Luthor, other than the Lex Luthor Lyle Talbot in the Superman versus Atom Man, who was very accurate to the comic books of like 1950. He was like a mad scientist in this underground cave and whatever. But no, he was really good. And I love that scene where Superman smashes into the office there and gets pissed off, and he's just like drinking his coffee, and it says Luthor on the coffee. Oh, dog? What dog? And then Superman goes and he kicks the desk into the window. I think that was a great scene. That was a great scene. So yeah, I agree. He's I'm sure he'll be back in the next movie. Hopefully, he'll have his super armor suit on, because they have a toy of him with the super armor suit, like they did in the last movie, that they don't show Lex Luthor in the super armor suit. So hopefully they'll have him in that suit in the next movie.
Well, the technology is there. His other guys that wore the outfit, I was like, that just looks like a Lex suit,
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, I was hoping he'd be in the suit, take on Superman.
I have a feeling it's something we're going to talk about after. But Ray, what's your take on Lex?
Well, this is interesting. I was watching Diego Luna fill in for Jimmy Fallon, and he was interviewing both actors that played Lex and Superman, and apparently the guy who played Lex Luthor was actually second. He actually went for the Superman role.
Yeah, I heard that.
He lost it to Corn Sweat, but I think his Lex Luthor was great. I would have been curious to see him as a Superman as well, because he is such a cool. He has more of a Superboy look, but
yeah, he's very young looking.
But as Lex Luthor, I felt like he was like evil Tom Cruise from Tropic Thunder.
I like that.
Like I felt like every time I looked at him, he looked like a clone of Tom Cruise or something. Like Tom Cruise in that movie with the little kid, Show Me the Money. Like it was that was like a whole. He was like the Show Me the Money Tom Cruise. I forgot the name of that movie, but basically that's what I felt like he was emulating. And I thought that was cool because I like Tom Cruise. I was like, but I would have loved to see him as Superman, because I'm sure he would have brought a different take to him.
Yeah. I'm just looking through my notes if there's anything specific I want to talk about before I get to kind of the last thing. Now, okay, I think I went over basically everything. We didn't talk about the Supergirl, cameo at the end. And I'll just say this about it. When it first came out, I didn't like it. She says later bitches. I'm like, that's not Supergirl. She comes back drunk. But it's supposed to be based on Tom King's Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow story, where she's dealing with having to see or having to have seen like the destruction of Krypton, because she was older when she left. She was supposed to be sent to Earth to watch over Clark, but obviously, things happened with her ship. She arrives late. Clark's now an adult, so she's dealing with her life being all messed up. Now, I haven't read the comic. I know nothing about it. But I again, with the cursing, I didn't like it. And I also didn't like how it was coming in. But now that I know it's based on a comic, I'm going to wait to see what happens.
I wish it was the Supergirl from the TV show, to be honest.
Listen, the CW had had a pretty decent cast. I mean, most of those shows got a little goofy as the seasons went on,
Yeah,
but
horrible rating.
but they had good casts, and I wouldn't be upset if those went to the big screen. But
Mhm.
you know, I've always preferred TV over movies, because in TV you can do character development over 13, 22 episodes, whatever it is, as opposed to sitting in the movies for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, you know? So for me, character development I prefer. And I feel TV acts more like a comic because it's serialized. Like, oh, you know, I'm going to wait next month for that comic book, and I got a month to think about it. And you know, in TV shows, we have a week in between to think about what happened and what could happen, you know?
Yeah, I just that reinforced how much I hate James Gunn's writing, because he always takes characters. It's okay to reconstruct and to have a new take on a character. I'm not against that, but to just bring it down to that low level of like juvenile, sixth grade humor, you know, it's not, there's no thought into that, you know. It's just like the frat, this just like the DC frat boys, you know, that mentality, boys club mentality. But you know, even within that mentality, in the workers, they still respect the characters, but he doesn't really respect the characters. I don't think he respects Superman as a character or any of these. These are just things for him to play with, you know. And I think that he could have like really just like Supergirl, like even the Flash, which I hated, when they had the animated Supergirl that said nothing, that had more dignity than with the shitty CGI Christopher Reeve. That had more dignity than her with the dog and then just saying bitch and walking out drunk. It's like what again? Are you telling a kid story? Or are you
Well,
telling
that's the thing.
no.
And that's my issue with these things.
And I think that's going to confuse some of the kids too.
Yeah.
I think they'll be confused.
Like
You know,
that's not the Supergirl that I grew up liking on TV. You
well,
know?
it's never going to, and that's the thing. Like I've always said, you know, if I don't like this movie or I don't like a character, I got the comics, you know, here. I got the DVDs here. I got the streaming services I can watch and go to my version of these characters that I love. So, but I want to see what these interpretations are, you know, and make my decision. Like I said, if I want a fun popcorn movie that I just don't want to think about, I will watch this movie again. I'm not going to pay in the theater to see it, but I do have HBO Max. It will end up on like TNT or whatever, you know, being rerun on cable, you know, constantly at some point, like the Marvel movies are and whatnot. And I will, you know, I won't turn it off if it's on. But it's just not, to me. It's not a Superman movie, and that's not to say David wasn't a good Superman. I think he was a fantastic Superman. I don't think it was a Superman movie, and that's my issue with this. Now, with all that said, because I do want to start wrapping up soon, I wanted to talk about predictions for this Gunniverse. Now, I've talked to Ray about this. Tom, you brought up what Ray said about the possible dark side. That was actually something I saw in there when I was telling Ray. Now, the way I envision a couple of things, and if you guys want to chime in after, go for it. I got a couple of things I want to say first about that. I don't think Darkseid's going to be the big bad. I think there's going to be a first big bad before him, but I feel like that technology to go into the pocket dimensions is more of an apocalypse technology that, like, Lex, while he's in jail, is probably going to, let's say, share a prison cell with Bruno Mannheim, and he's going to come out, have the connection, and we're going to see Intergang, which I would love to see. And I think that's going to be like an eventual Darkseid story. My actual thoughts on the big bad, the first one of like the Justice League big bad, is going to be Vandal Savage, because when they talk in the intro credits, they say 3,000 years ago this happened. 300 years ago, metahumans came. Now, if you watch the Young Justice cartoon, Vandal Savage was the big bad of that, and he supposedly all the metahumans are basically somehow connected to his DNA. So I have a feeling they may kind of go through that. Also, with the Milestone universe, which was in the late 90s, gave us Static Shock and all that DC owns as well. If I remember correctly, 300 years ago is when Icon landed on Earth.
Mhm.
So he could have been the first metahuman people are seeing, another alien.
Right.
And I feel like that could be who they were talking about 300 years ago, the first metahumans appeared. But also, are they connected to Vandal Savage? Because there's a history, and why are they popping up? And they're not saying they didn't exist before, but they're saying that's when, people started seeing them.
Right.
So those are kind of my big
Shazam,
predictions.
Like
What?
or Shazam or Black
Yeah,
Adam.
it could have been. Well, Shazam would have been technically earlier, right? Because that was
What about Wonder Woman?
Wonder Woman.
could have been Wonder Woman technically to the history appeared during World War II, but there could have been, in some in later interpretations, her mother was the original Wonder Woman who was part of the so she could have come out earlier, and because they've changed it up and whatever, but yeah, I think that's going to be what we're going to see. So I eventually think they're going to bring in some milestone. I mean, everybody wants Static Shock in a film. So I do feel we're going to see some milestone characters. I do feel Vandal Savage is going to be the big bad of the first part. And they're going to build up the Superman story villains with Intergang to eventually bring in Apocalypse. And if we're lucky, we'll get a New Gods story with that. Now, that's what I saw. Also they had the mural, that mural I mentioned earlier, where I finally saw like a blown up version online, showed Justice Society characters. So those characters exist, whether they were, historic characters. Because I know Wildcat was in it, like meaning that they were older heroes before the JLA, and they're an older Justice Society now. I don't know, but I see characters coming in. I see, or at least cameos they could have, and I see these types of directions for heroes and villains to start making appearances. So, like, if I'm right about, let's say, Intergang, that's going to be a big part, probably, of the Superman universe. You might see things move over into Gotham, or into the Green Lantern show, because they're space cops. Now, I know most of it's supposed to take place on Earth, but maybe they're in Coast City. Maybe they're doing stuff like that. So those have been my predictions based on what I saw in the movies. Anyone else have predictions? Agree, disagree, saw something I didn't see?
I have a prediction that Zaslav will be replaced and James Gunn will be bye-bye, and we won't see another Gunn movie. That's my prediction.
Okay. Let's talk about what happened in the film.
I think that
Bizarro will become Superboy.
Wait, hold on. Let's
all right.
Go ahead.
Let's get real. I think that they're going to finally put Brainiac in the next movie. They've been thinking about Brainiac since Superman 3. Superman 3 originally was going to have Brainiac. I think they're going to finally do Brainiac, but I think that Mike hit it on the nail on the head. Vandal Savage sounds and Icon sound right, because think back to the Superman animated series, and Vandal Savage was in all the animation and whatever. He's an immortal, and he made many appearances in the animated series. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And the thing with Icon makes sense. I didn't realize that Icon showed up 300 years ago. So yeah,
I'm not 100% sure. I have to look back on the date, but I believe it was 300 years ago.
So I think that makes a lot of sense, because obviously the next one he's going to load it up with more heroes. So this is what, because that's what he's doing with Peacemaker. He's got to load it up with heroes, and he was talking about like doing a lot of second tier and third tier heroes last night on TV. So yeah, exactly. And he may bring in Vandal Savage as a big bad or as an additional character. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But I think Brainiac.
At the pace he's going,
All right, I'm sorry,
Brainiac.
Rob, you were saying?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, at the pace he's going, the next movie is going to look like Endgame.
Right.
You know?
True.
No, but my prediction is that, you know, obviously you guys have the comic knowledge. You're pulling things that I don't even have any knowledge of, so you can make those predictions. But my prediction is that you cannot predict what he's going to. If Gunn is at the helm of this thing, you could say this makes sense. This makes sense. He's going to go against the grain. He's going to do the unexpected. He's going to test the boundaries of, you know, what people would like. He's going to do what he wants to do, from a creative standpoint, even if it's different or, you know, offbeat. So
Yeah. Or he's going to watch this and be like, "F you, Michael."
No idea.
I'm going to change it completely because you guessed it.
You see that his Creature Commando set up where the direction of where his universe is going? I haven't seen the cartoon.
I've only seen the first 2 episodes. I haven't had a chance to sit down and finish it. They were okay. I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of his, but it wasn't a bad animated series from the first 2 episodes I watched. He looked like he was building a good story there. But you know, and obviously Rick Flag is the team leader in that of the Creature Command, and he was in the movies. Frank Grillo played him.
Killed in Suicide Squad 2, or was it Peacemaker? That was Rick Flag.
That was the son, I think, or was he the father and this is the son? I don't know, because there were 2, right? There was Rick Flag Sr. and Jr. But Frank Grillo, who played Rick Flag in the movie, and you guys know him from Captain America. He ended up becoming Crossbones.
Hail Hydra.
But that elevator scene to me is still one of the best fight scenes in any movie.
He was also in Batman versus Superman too.
I don't remember him in that, but he's done a lot of stuff. But he does the voice for Rick Flag in the Creature Commandos cartoon. And in the Creature Commandos, he has a white like stripe in his hair. So I don't know if that's something he's going to get as a character, or again, you know, father son. I don't know which is which. If you know what time period these are taking in for his character. But yeah, no, and I've always liked Frank Grillo as an actor. So I hope you know.
Actually, I gotta take that back. It was another guy that was in the same movie, the Captain America movie. Another guy he was in the Batman versus Superman with the blowtorch, but he was also in the same Captain America movie.
Okay.
He was also one of the Hail Hydra Shield guys.
Okay. All right.
The Russian. He plays the Russian that kidnaps Lois Lane, and the one with the blowtorch to the mom.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about.
And he was also in the Marvel movies, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So like, what was I going with that? But yeah, no. So with Creature Commandos, I don't know. I do want to finish it.
Yeah.
You know, I tend to enjoy the animations a little bit more than the live actions.
Same.
I still go back to watching what, you know, everyone refers to as like the Timverse there, the Bruce Timm stuff. You know, that DC animated universe there. You know, when those shows came out, you know, you look at Batman the animated series, Superman, and everything that followed, Justice League Unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when that came out, the Batman, I was 16 years old. I was in high school planning to go to college for animation. I was drawing comic characters. That style, and you know, that they and we've talked about this at other times, that they pulled Batman was from the Fleischer Superman cartoons, was from Alex Toth, who did like the Space Ghost. You know, all these great influences on me already. So I was really attracted to that. Mm-hmm. When they left that style, they also kind of changed that storytelling. you know, and I feel the movies got a little weaker. Um,
Big time.
but you know, speaking of Superman, I didn't have an issue with the anime one they did, the My Adventures with Superman, which I think they said a season 2 is eventually going to come, or season 3.
The animated version, the anime version.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with it. I mean,
It was hard for me to watch. I think I saw
It-
2 episodes. And I
you
was
gotta, you kind of gotta, you know, just kind of like it was hard for me to, like, I remember when it came out, I'm like, I don't like this. It's and not because it was anime. You know, you and
like Superman is Sailor Moon.
well, he did have like that transformation or something.
But he's also got a similar S too. His S is
Yeah, he
also
does.
similar to what
Yeah.
has.
I gotta
Yeah.
go to bed, guys. I'll
Yeah.
let you guys go. Thanks for having
All
me.
right, yeah, no problem, Ray. I'm gonna end in a few anyway. So thanks for coming on. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye.
All right.
Good night.
All right,
good
take
night.
care.
But I can, until he remembers to take himself off, I will. Oh, there he goes. But
But
yeah,
now he's
so
gone.
yeah, now the
Now
fun
he's
can
gone.
really
He can
start.
talk.
But yeah, no, it's you know, I don't even remember where I was going with everything, but I like the different interpretations of the anime. I didn't like a lot of like that Crisis on Infinite Earths animation. I don't know if you guys watched that. It was
No,
a little
yeah,
too
yeah,
stiff,
that was
a
not
little
good.
boring. It
That
wasn't.
was not
It wasn't
good.
great. Yeah, I mean, I was excited because Crisis on Infinite Earths was what brought me into the comic book world. You know, that was I read my cousin's issues while I was over his house. You know, back in '86, and I picked it up because I knew the Super Friends, and I'm like, I have no clue. This is not the Super Friends, but wow, what a story, you know. And that was what brought me in. So I'm always excited if I see like a Crisis type of, you know, animation or live action crossover like they did with the CW, because I just love that story because it's so close, you know, close to me because of that's what brought me into the comic book world, you know. But yeah,
I think
anyway.
the animation of DC is the best. Is the best that they've done of any of the characters. So the animation is the way to get. I think that they should forget about the live action. They should just do really big budget animation and do it like the CGI, like you see in some of these video games, which looks almost real. Do it that way, because it, you know, you can have the voices and, you know, almost like a Pixar thing. Do the superheroes that way because they can do whatever they want.
Well, I will say that crypto cartoon they did. I don't know if you guys saw that crypto movie.
Some of it, yeah.
I thought that was a great movie. I enjoyed the way Clark and Batman were portrayed, you know, and you know, I'm like, I would watch a whole series in that style, you know, of Batman, Superman, just any of the characters.
Right. Right.
So, which was very Pixar-esque over there.
Yes. Yes. So I think that the animation people, I think Sam Register is the name of the guy.
I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know. Well, I'm looking at the credits. I think he runs the whole. I think they have a better take on these characters than everybody else. You know, starting with Bruce Timm and animated series.
Yeah.
You know, just an aside, I was reading yesterday. I think Mike Houston or whatever, they were talking about the Fleischer cartoons, and I guess there was a little ad that was in a trade paper back in like 1941. They were talking about that the next that they were going to do was going to be a Batman cartoon. After the Fleischer was so popular that they were going to do a Batman cartoon, then they made a little announcement. And so I guess supposedly what they were going to do was they were going to do Batman, but in black and white. Now that would have been awesome. The Fleischer doing Batman in black and white in 1942. That would have been. I would have
loved that.
There's thinking about what they would have done with Batman, but black and white, not color. That would have been crazy.
Yeah,
that would have been crazy.
And Warner Brothers has the ability to do that if they want to. You know, their team can draw in that Fleischer style, and their team could because I will say, listen, I don't want to go into this whole other show, but that new Batman cartoon for Amazon I thought was terrible. I didn't like it. I don't know if you
Yeah,
guys saw it, but
yeah, I did see it. Yeah,
it
there were
just
bits and pieces that were good, but yeah, the female penguin,
it wasn't even
nah.
that. I think I don't know what episode it was, and but the only one I really liked was what was it? The one where they were at the circus and whoever was kidnapping the kids, because all the kids were a tribute to the Robins. Like I liked that. Like there was one, like they had initials. You know, one kid was like called Dick. There was another one that was like Jason. You know, and they had
Right,
the initials of all the different Robins, and I'm like, oh, that's kind
right,
of cool. That was a nice like
right,
throwback, and that was like my favorite part of it. But I don't know, I didn't think the
right.
series was that good overall.
Yeah, well,
But
yeah, it's like,
art wise, backgrounds. Oh my god, amazing backgrounds in
well,
that.
I like that it was kind of set like in the 1940s, supposedly, I guess, in that era.
Yeah,
That was kind of
yeah.
neat. But yeah, yeah, it was okay, but it was a little disappointing. But I guess they're doing a season 2, so we'll see now what they
Nah,
do.
well, I
Maybe
won't see.
he'll be nice. He'll be nice as Alfred in season 2.
Yeah, I don't know. I won't be watching it. I'll tell you that. Season 1 turned me off to it. But anyway,
Anyhow,
before we end it, because it's 2.5 hours in now. I know you guys probably got to get up and go to work or something. But any last thoughts that you'd like to say about the Superman film? Rob, I'll let you go first.
I think honestly, I think we covered everything. At least I covered and got to bring up everything that stood out to me in the movie, from likes to dislikes to things I just wish he had done differently. And but overall, like I said, it's like you said, Mike. It's a good movie. If you're just you're looking for that summer movie to go to, enjoy yourself, have some popcorn, and be entertained. It's definitely an entertaining movie, and we could pick it apart to death, and compare it to other Superman movies, and it's hard to do that because Gunn is going to make it. He's going to do it his way and put his spin on it, and he'll pull from the things that resonate with him in this universe. So and all the canon and all the content that's out there. So but overall, like I said, good movie. I liked it. Again, not sure how he's going to do a sequel to this, because it kind of feels like this was a sequel to something. But I think in the end, I think when they do things like this, and I always feel they're rushing, they're always pushing. They're always rushing to catch up and trying to give us more than they necessarily need to out of the gate. But puts them into a corner, and it forces them to go bigger and even more kind of offbeat in terms of the amount of content they're giving us in a movie. So he's created a situation for himself where the next movie is going to have to be just exponentially larger and even more impact. I mean, it felt like there was a trilogy in this one movie.
right.
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
From the so. I'm interested to see what he does next and how he's going to pull it off, because I have no idea how he's going to do it.
Yeah. I agree. I felt it was a little bit overstuffed. There was a lot of moving parts. The whole thing with the little war and all this stuff was what I want to see is I want to see the Blu-ray. I want to see the 25 minutes that are missing, or whatever the deleted scenes are. I'd be really curious to see, or if they do a director's cut like they did with Batman versus Superman, which was far better than what they put in the theater, which filled in a lot of gaps. So it'd be interesting if they do like a director's cut version available. But yeah, I agree. The next one is going to have to be bigger and badder, and have twice as many characters, and yeah, exactly. It's gonna. He's got his work cut out for him, and of course then Supergirl is next year, and then after that is the Batman 2, and then they're supposed to be doing a Brave and Bold movie, which is supposed to be Batman with his son from Talia, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts. Well, let's see if those things happen. Obviously, this movie is a success, so they're happy about that. So thank God it wasn't like The Flash or Blue Beetle or Shazam. So this one is resonating with audiences. So we'll see what he does. I think he'll do some interview. He's a fan. You have to see the interview. He's a fan. He's kind of one of us.
Yeah.
So I think he'll do a good job. It's just a matter of, how long it's gonna take. 10 years. Like, hopefully I'll be around in 10 years to see what's going on. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do, or to see if Warner Brothers still survives in 10 years. If it's not bought by Disney or something, if they're able to do all this stuff. So we shall see.
All right. And for me, here's the thing. Even though I've mentioned multiple times, even tonight, that I'm not a James Gunn fan as a filmmaker, I've never said anything about him as like him being a bad guy, him not being a fan. I really think he is a fan. I'm just thrilled we have a Superman movie. I am thrilled that we got the actor playing Superman. I think he genuinely embodies what Superman is about. I really enjoyed that line where he says to Lois, maybe kindness is the new punk rock, or is the real punk rock, whatever the line is. Because to me, that's what Superman's about. Even though he's about putting down the bad guys, he's someone that you want to look up to and aspire to. And I'm hoping that the kids that watch this can look up at, David Cornsweet's Superman as I've looked up to other Supermen on the, in film and television. But the one thing I want is a Superman movie, though. All right. So, James, if you're watching this, just focus on Superman. Give me go back and look at the old Fleischer cartoons and look at you want crazy, nonsense, get a mad scientist. I know you have, you had Lex, but I mean, like, the mad scientist was a giant bird and all those like giant robots that he sent out, and like just do crazy, stupid things that we could just, and the sci-fi aspect of it, really play that up. That's what I want to see. I don't need to see Lex as the continued villain, although you have probably the best on-screen Lex in live action I've ever seen. I don't always want it to be Superman versus Lex. I want to see Brainiac. If you can bring Mongol in some way, that's like my favorite Superman villain.
Right.
Just like I want to see that sci-fi nature, especially if you're really loving the Silver Age.
Well, Lobo's going to be in the Supergirl film, so we may see some of that stuff there. One thing I want to say is, go ahead.
No. The only thing I want to say is when you get to the Justice League, we need Starro as the villain.
Well, they did Starro in the Suicide Squad, so
I know, but I don't count that.
Exactly. But what I would say is, as much as I hate to admit it, we have to thank David Zaslav, who's the CEO, who I hate because he killed the Batgirl movie. Because one of the first things he said was, we have to do a Superman movie. We have to bring Superman back to be the top dog of these movies. So he really was the impetus to getting a new Superman movie made. So I have to give the guy credit that he put everything in motion to get a Superman movie made. That's my last thing.
All right. Well, then, first of all, everyone, thank you for watching. Thank you guys for coming on. I'll be back next week. I know I always say, I might do a stream over the weekend. I've been so busy on my weekends that I haven't had time, and this weekend's not going to be any different, so don't expect a stream from me. I would like to start doing my Monday night live streams again, but in the meantime, just keep watching this and look out for some new stuff coming to my YouTube channel. I haven't announced it yet, but I have some fun stuff in the works. Thank you. Go ahead. What?
I was saying one thing, and this weekend, on the 19th, I'll be Ray, myself, Tom Ahern, and my cousin Rich will be at the Vintage Comic Book Show in New Milford, Connecticut, on Saturday, and that's in the John Pettibone School. It'll be there, so we'll be selling stuff and comics and all that stuff. And then Sunday, my cousin and I are going to be at a show in Long Island. I'll be doing 2 shows this weekend, so there.
Awesome. Yeah, unfortunately, all weekend is family weekend for me, so I can't attend anything. Ray told me about the Vintage Con, and that sounds like the perfect show for me. So to walk, not to do, but to walk at. So yeah, anyway, you guys, thank you for coming on. Everybody go see Tom this weekend, whether you're in Long Island or the Connecticut area. You're not far if you're in like the New York kind of Carmel, Brewster area to get to New Milford. It's kind of close to that. So yeah, check everyone out. Thank you guys. If you haven't seen the movie and we spoiled everything for you, that's your fault for watching right now. But definitely check the movie out. It is worth going to see, whether you're a Superman fan or not. I'm not going to say James Gunn hit it out of the park. I can never say that, but I would, he's on the right track with something. That's all I can say. He's got potential, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out in the future. All right, follow what I said though. I think that'll work.
Yes.
All right, guys. You have a great night.
All
Thank you guys for coming on.
Thanks,
I'll
Mike.
talk to you
Appreciate
guys
the
Rob.
invite.
All right.